This is our Optimum Images Masterclass. We have an Advanced Images Masterclass coming on July 12th, but this is going to be a really good precursor for this. Now, for anyone who is thinking about joining the Masterclass on July 12th, you're going to see a totally different set of information. And so think about this as more of the essential framework. When we get to the workshop on July 12th, the Masterclass there, it's going to be about 4 hours long, just jam-packed with information. I think we have some information in here about it. If you are an Inner Circle already, you get to join that totally for free. If you are not an Inner Circle member, you might want to join before, just because there's going to be a lot more amazing masterclasses like this coming down the pipeline. But I think it's like $200 or something like that. Definitely going to be a really, really good value. Now, like I said earlier, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about Brandon. I think Brandon is the mastermind behind Seller Systems, right? He sells, on track to probably sell about $20 million or $30 million this year with his toy brand, among many other different types of products, and also created Data Dive with the team we have here, which if you aren't using Data Dive already for selling on Amazon, that is our software tool. It is super powerful. Now, I think I'm a little bit of a familiar face here in Seller Systems. Even before I was with Data Dive, before I was with Seller Systems, I know back in my days at PickFu, I know I've made a few appearances and always wanted to support these events and this community, because out of all of the communities, and I've worked with all of them, right? I'm not going to mention any by names, but Seller Systems is for sure the best. I'll tell you a little bit about my background. I won't spend too much time talking about this, but I think it relates pretty heavily into what I'm going to talk today, which is all about images and conversion optimization. So actually started my career back in 2016. I actually started selling on Amazon the same time that I started working for Amazon. I did an internship in loss prevention based out of Tampa, and I also worked in Houston, got to launch a few different fulfillment centers. My whole role at the fulfillment center was around physical security of the building, right? So I was in Houston during Hurricane Harvey. I got to deal with all sorts of internal theft, employee violence, active shooter situations, kind of the craziest stuff you can imagine inside the fulfillment centers. And, people always ask, like, what's the craziest story you've ever seen? And what I'll say is, back when I was an intern, I heard about this story based out of Newark, New Jersey, where, as you can imagine, things do get stolen from the fulfillment centers. And one crazy story that I heard was someone over a period of 2 years stole $250,000 in iPhones. And the crazy thing is, when you're leaving the fulfillment center, for any of the sellers who have ever gotten to take a tour of an FC, you know that on the way out, there's security, right? They're looking through your bags. But this guy was quite smart, and he actually created a lunchbox with hidden compartments in it. And every day he would put 1 or 2 iPhones in there, and over a 2-year period stole $250,000 of iPhones. So when I was an intern, I heard that story and I was like, this is nuts that we're hand scanning and we're searching through people's lunches. It also seems a little unsanitary and it was very slow. So when I was an intern in Tampa, I actually pitched a white paper to implement X-ray screening in the Amazon fulfillment centers. And so that white paper got approved. And so now, while I was an intern, that project rolled out to more than 80 fulfillment centers across North America. So if you're ever in an FC and on the way out, you go through some metal detectors, that was my white paper. Now, I started working at Amazon, but before I started my internship, a good friend of mine from college actually started to teach me how to sell on Amazon. And on the summer before I started my full-time job in Houston, he helped me launch my first product. It was a product in this travel category. And about that same time, I launched my product. I knew that before I started working a full-time job, I wanted to have a product that I was selling, have some extra income there. And I worked at Amazon for about a year before that same guy who taught me how to sell online was like, hey man, why don't you quit your job at Amazon, move out to the Philippines and help me scale this creative agency called Virtuous Graphics. And this was already kind of a risky move for me because I was a college dropout, right? I dropped out of college as soon as I landed a full-time job because I was like, all right, well, now I can tell my parents that I don't need to go to college anymore. I have a stable, solid job. And so this was a very risky decision to leave my job at Amazon, move across the world to go make $2,000 a month. but I knew if I didn't do it, I'd end up regretting it forever. So the next day I put in my 2 weeks notice, moved across the world, and then helped scale this creative agency called Virtuous Graphics. And this was one of the first creative agencies that was specifically for Amazon FBA, right? There were many other agencies that did graphic design. They would take photos, but it was more of, they were just photography agencies, just graphic design agencies. And so back then, this was back in about late 2017, early 2018, we had a team of about 7 or 8 people. And my whole job was to go and scale that company as big as possible. And so we added on, in addition to doing photography and graphic design, we added on a copywriting and video department. And we really worked hard to train our staff to understand how Amazon worked and understand what you needed on your product detail page to drive conversions, really to get that conversion rate up. So I helped grow that business for 2 years, and we scaled that team to more than 25 full-time creatives. We had a studio in Quezon City, Philippines, and then we moved to Makati. We had a full breakdown, full lifestyle backdrops for shooting in like a bathroom and a kitchen and a bedroom. We had a whole model network in Manila. So that was a really fantastic time. In the end of 2018, that agency was acquired by a small aggregator based out of Southeast Asia called Alpha Rock Capital. And so they bought that business as mainly as a strategic buy. They wanted a whole team of people that would be able to service the brands that they acquired. And so I stayed on with that company after exit for about 6 months, helping them transition out. And I made a little bit of money, but it wasn't like I made enough money that I would never have to work again. And so this was right before the big aggregator boom happened, where all of these aggregators, right? Alpha Rock Capital was a very small one. There was a whole bunch of aggregators at that time with a lot of money. And I could see that the trend of the e-com industry was not going anywhere. It was just going to keep growing and growing and growing and growing. And so I knew I didn't want to leave the industry. And so back when I was working at Virtuous Graphics, I had gotten to meet the founders of PickFu at Prosper Show in Vegas. And we actually did some collaborations with them back then. We were one of the first agencies to start implementing main image testing for our clients, where we wouldn't just make for them one main image. We would make for them a handful of main images, run them through PickFu, and then see which one performed, right? Trying to optimize for click-through rate. So I had a good relationship with Justin and John. I thought that PickFu was a fantastic company. But when I met Justin and John at Prosper Show in Vegas, I could tell that they were a little bit more introverted. They were a little bit more of engineering types. And so I approached them and I said, hey guys, give me a shot and I will make sure that everyone in the industry knows about PickFu because I think it's an amazing product. And so that's what I did for about another 2 years. And then once I had scaled that, basically, I think as big as it could get, or at least as big as I thought at that time, I was looking for something else that was new. And I think I get into this slide in a minute, but basically what happened is I didn't actually know very much about Data Dive at the time. I was doing some consulting work on the side and I had used it and some of my clients used it. But I actually approached Brandon first and foremost about Seller Systems, because back when I was at Virtuous Graphics, I actually bought the Seller Systems membership and I gave it to different members of our team so that they could go through the training and learn more of the fundamentals on Amazon. And so I actually initially approached Brandon and said, hey, I think Seller Systems has the best content. It has the best information, but the way that it's packaged, right, the way that it looks, I think we could really make it a lot better. I think we can make it a lot more engaging. And so Brandon gave me a shot on coming on the team. And for the first year, really spent a lot of time working with our software tool called Data Dive. For those of you that have used it, you know it's a pretty complicated piece of software. So there is a pretty substantial learning curve. And so right now I split my time between both of those. Just exited that last travel brand last year and working on launching some new products right now. So I've sold many different products online. I've sold services online. And I think what my real superpower is figuring out what are the key attributes of a product or a service, and then packaging them and selling it in a way that is just going to get people to click and say, I need to buy that, right? So that's kind of a little bit about my background. Now, the agenda for the masterclass today, I think we've already moved through the introduction. I like to start out with an essential framework, and then at the end, we're going to have kind of like an open format question, and then the let's do it. There's just some sections. It's a pretty free form for this masterclass. Here we go. So how it's going to be broken down for real, I think that was another slide. We have the essential framework, right? This is going to be the nuts and bolts of what you need to understand about conversion optimization. Then we're going to go through some more of the advanced strategies, and then we'll wrap up with a section that I call future considerations. And that's kind of where Amazon and where images are going in the future. Okay. Woo. Two ways that you can ask questions here. Number one is you can raise your hand. I'm going to recommend that you do that until the end. I don't think I'm going to do too much questions until the end of the presentation, but we will prioritize anyone who has their hands raised. But what you can be doing throughout the content is you can add your questions to the chat. And that's going to be a good way to ask your questions here. At the end of the presentation, you're going to see a link for the survey. Guys, seriously, this really helps us out, right? It's only, I think, 4 questions long. And it's basically going to ask you, like, where were your biggest aha moments? What areas didn't make sense? And then there's maybe 1 or 2 other questions on there. So it only takes a few minutes to fill out. But when we're working on these presentations and when we're working on these decks, we don't just make them one time and recycle the same thing over. We actually do read that feedback. In the areas that didn't make sense, we go back and revise. The areas that are the key takeaways where you had your aha moments, we try to go and find more like that, right? Because year after year, this content is just going to get better and better. On top of that, if just filling these surveys out as a personal favor to me isn't enough, we are every month giving away big prizes to randomly selected participants. And so what I'll say is typically very few people fill out these surveys, right? So if you fill this out, I think the odds of you winning are quite good. So take a minute here. At the end of the presentation, you'll see a link, you'll see a QR code. Please, please, please fill that out. It really helps us, and we really do read those. Now, like I said, this is the Optimum Images class. This is kind of the free version. On July 12th at 6 p.m. Eastern, this is going to be our full visual optimization masterclass. So this is totally free if you're an Inner Circle member. I think it's $199 if you're not an Inner Circle. And this is going to be probably the most helpful masterclass that you're going to go through this year. And so this information that you're going to see today, what you're going to see on July 12th is going to be totally different. We're going to have ready to go templates, right? Today, I'm going to talk a lot about secondary images, and I'm going to show you a matrix, which has all the different secondary image types. We're actually going to give you a much deeper level of that has templates that you can hand off to your designer, hand off to your graphic designer or your creative agency to say, hey, follow these templates and you're going to have highly converting secondary images, right? A really good starting point. I'm going to be walking through my whole strategy and the strategy I taught to the team members at our agency. And I would do when I was doing creative trainings at PickFu, I call high volume variations, right? So this is all about creating different versions of things that you can test, right? To optimize your performance over time. I'm going to go much deeper in terms of different testing and scoring techniques, right? Everyone's always asking me, hey, Anthony, is my image gallery good, right? How can I tell if my image gallery is going to perform strong? I'm going to walk you through a few different scoring techniques that you can use. We're going to be going in depth on video and A+ content. These are a little bit more work than photos, but can sometimes be the higher ROI drivers when it comes to increasing your conversion rate. I'm going to walk through some of the advanced AI applications in design. Today, you're going to get a very high level overview on how AI can help you in your brand. And then we're going to talk about enhancing brand perception. So this is going to be everything from logos, packaging, product inserts, right? The whole look and feel of your brand. We're going to walk through that. And then I'm also going to explain to you, based on where you are in the selling process, understand the content creation lifecycle. So the types of images, the types of content that you should be creating, the budgets that you should be spending are going to be very different if you're just launching versus if you have a product that's doing $10,000 a month versus $100,000 a month versus $1 million a month, right? And so I'm going to walk you through the strategies and how you can kind of adapt as your brand scales, right? How to make a content and a creative strategy that's going to scale with your brand. Most of the time, what I see is that sellers, they might be selling $1 million+ a year, right? But they're using the exact same images. They're using the exact same creative strategy that they used when they launched the brand 3 to 5 years ago. right? So I'm going to walk you through how to do all of that. Mark your calendars, July 12th. I'm sure there's going to be a link here, or maybe Marlene or Dina can drop the link on where they can register for that. Again, totally free for Inner Circle members. Let's jump into the advanced framework. So I think I already talked about this a little bit, but initially when I approached, Brandon, I said, hey, look, you guys have the best coaching community. I want to be a part of this. I want to help build out your content. One of the really cool things that happened, and this is just, the more you learn, the more it's going to help you be successful as a seller. And so before, my background, even on the brands that I sold, I only handled one part of it, right? And that was really related to content and conversion optimization. Anything related to PPC, SEO, that kind of stuff, I didn't really handle very much of that. My business partner did, or I would outsource different tasks. But when I came over and joined Data Dive, I already understood the content side. But over the past year and a half, I've really now started to understand much more about how SEO works, about how PPC works. And I think the really important part about this is, in order to be a successful seller, not just selling, a few $1,000s a month, but getting up to the level of Brandon and larger, you really have to understand that Amazon is, at the end of the day, a very complicated math equation, right? And the way that I like to explain it is, you have all of these different levers that you can pull. And some sellers don't have access to all of the levers, right? Sometimes you don't have the funds to access all of the levers. And some sellers, they can pull their levers down at different levels and different amounts. The key to selling on Amazon and really dominating your niche and to dominating, the entire platform, is making sure that for all of the levers that you have access to, they're pulled down to the maximum amount, right? That's going to give you the highest performance. And today, what we're going to be talking all about is how you can have your content lever down, mainly your conversion and your click-through lever pulled all the way down. And I'm going to show you some strategies today on how you can get that accomplished. And so a lot of this presentation today is based off of, over the years, right? Since the creative agency days, since PickFu days, I speak at a lot of conferences, and people would always say the same thing to me. They'd say, hey, Anthony, can you take a look at my listing, right? And I've gotten on hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these calls over the years, right? Probably, going to trade shows. Sometimes I'll talk to like 30 or 40 people in just one day. And so I do this a lot, and I still do this all the time. But what I tried to do when I put this presentation together is realize that a lot of the advice that I'm giving is the same thing over and over and over again. The same, people that had good listings, there were very similar attributes to the listings that were high performers. And then the listings that were low performers, there were very similar things that would keep those listings back. And so I thought, okay, what can I do to come up with a kind of set of rules? And then also not just, hey, here's a list of best practices, make your images look like this, or here's a little hack that you can do that's going to help you a little bit. What I really wanted to do is try to educate people on what's the mindset that you have to have, what's the overall essential framework, which is what I'm going through now, about what you need to actually succeed and to have the highest performing images possible. And so that's what we're going to be covering today. Now, in terms of the essential framework, this is what you really have to understand of when you're selling on Amazon and someone is looking at your product, right? I call this hacking the brain. Every minute that someone's eyeballs are open and they're looking at your listing, whether it's on their phone, whether it's on a computer, you have to understand that the human brain is a giant graphics processor, right? They're looking at the information on your screen, and then faster than they even can realize that it's happening, their brain is processing the visual information, and that is what is ultimately going to lead them to decisions, right? So the same way your computer, right? I have my camera plugged into my laptop right now, right? The same way this is plugged in and it's transferring that information directly to the computer's putting it up on the screen. Every second that someone's eyeballs are open, you are transmitting information into their brain, and their brain is using that to make decisions. And so I cannot stress this enough, right? This is a direct opportunity to communicate with the brain and to influence it to make decisions. So you'll see up on the screen here, right? And this is not an exaggeration. The human brain is a giant graphics processor. Same way this camera is working into the computer right now is exactly how your brain works. 90% of all of the information that's transmitted through the brain is visual, right? Also, not an exaggeration. This is a scientific fact, right? So as you're seeing me right now, your brain is actually processing everything in your visual field more than it's processing the noises in the background, more than it's processing how it feels to sit in your chair, more than it's processing the temperature. Visual information is 90% of what goes through your brain. And like I said earlier, right, this is happening faster than we even can realize, right? It's actually unconscious. It's happening just in the background, automatically at rapid speed, right? The human brain is going to process an image 70,000 times faster than it's going to process text. Now, what you have to understand, so how does this relate to hacking the brain? Okay, this seems a little abstract, Anthony. Well, I'm gonna make it all into a loop right now. What you have to understand is, so you're communicating directly with the brain when someone's looking at your listing. But it's not like we're trying to brainwash them. It's not like we're trying to do anything dishonest. The reason this works so well, the strategies I'm going to show you today, and then I'm going to show you on July 12th, the reason this works so well is because the vast majority of the time, when someone is shopping on the Amazon platform, they will buy a product. In fact, the average conversion rate of a Prime shopper, and this is an old statistic, I wouldn't be surprised if it's actually gone up a little bit, but the average conversion rate of a Prime shopper is 74%. And you might be sitting there and saying, Anthony, my conversion rate's not 74%. That doesn't make any sense. And you might be right. Your unit session percentage might not be 74%. But what you have to understand is that if someone is searching for a red spatula on Amazon and they go to the search bar, they type in red spatula, the vast majority of the time, they're going to end up buying a red spatula. The question is, will they buy your red spatula, or will they buy a red spatula from one of your competitors that is a very similar, if not an identical product? So the name of the game on Amazon is you have this narrow window of when someone is looking at your product detail page before they go and click on one of those other tabs, right? Navigate to the other browser. Before they do that, you have this narrow window of time to say, okay, you have the intent to buy a red spatula. 74% of the time, you're going to buy a red spatula. I'm going to convince you in this very narrow window of time that my product is the only product that you need to look at. And more importantly, I'm going to check off all of the boxes in your brain about what you need to know, right? Answer the very specific questions about that red spatula that you need to know before you're going to click add to cart and then ultimately hit that buy button. So what you have to think about, though, here's the challenge that's associated with optimizing for conversion rate, is that you have to tailor your listing to be effective in a distracted environment. So I'm talking about, we're hacking the brain, right? We're communicating directly with the brain being a giant graphics processor. What we have is we have this expectation, right? That when someone's shopping on Amazon and they're looking for their red spatula, that they're fully engaged, right? They're like zoned in on your listing. They're reading every single bit of your listing. They're looking at all of your images. They're looking at all of your A+ content. They're watching your video, and they're sitting there with a big smile on their face and their credit card out. I've got a card here, and they're ready to buy, right? That's what we would love to have happen, right? And our conversion rates would probably be much higher if people actually did that. But the reality is actually quite different from that. When someone's shopping on Amazon, right, they're not zoned in. They're not looking at every detail. They're not absorbing everything that's going on. Typically, when people are shopping on Amazon, they're engaged in distracted shopping. So they've got the phone going off. They've got the dog barking. They've got kids running around. There's crazy things going on in the world. There's submarines that are imploding under the ocean, right? All of this crazy stuff. Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg talking about having an MMA fight. There's all of these things that they want to get back to. They want to see what's going on. They want to check in on what's going on in the world. And so what you have to do is you have, again, this very narrow window of time, this very narrow window of attention that you have to capitalize on, and you really have to make the most of it. That's what's going to drive your conversion rates as high as possible. So the first thing that I want to talk about in terms of the essential framework is you want to tailor your listing to be effective in that distracted shopping environment. So if we're talking about the image gallery, your first image is the main image, right? And so when I'm thinking about the main image, I am never looking at this as a conversion tool, right? The main image, and we're going to give some best practices for this later, but the main image is not a conversion tool. The purpose of the main image is click-through rate. It's having someone see your product from the search results and say, ooh, this looks interesting. This looks what I'm looking for. And you want them to click in. So from a conversion tool, we don't really get to focus on the main image, right? I guess the other thing that I'm going to say here is, let's say you have 6 images in the image gallery, right? The main image is out, right? That's not a conversion tool. Imagine if out of the remaining 5 images in your gallery, if let's say 3 of them are good and they do a good job of convincing someone, okay, this is what I'm looking for. This answers a relevant question. This tells me something about the product. If only 3 out of the additional 5 images in the gallery are accomplishing this task, then I haven't really done a very good job of capitalizing on that very narrow window of attention that I was talking about when someone is shopping in that distracted shopping environment, right? And so what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to make sure that, okay, our main image is already out. If we only have 5 extra images in our image gallery, right, we're going to want to make sure that each of these opportunities, this is opportunity 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we want to make sure that each of these opportunities is going to be effective in convincing someone that, yes, they found the right product. They don't need to look anywhere else. This is the one that they should be adding to the cart. Beyond that, what I want you to do is I want you to give extra attention to images in position 2 and 3 in the gallery. Now remember, main image, that's just for click-through rate. So if I'm thinking about, okay, again, I'd love for everyone to stare and absorb all of the images in my gallery and spend a lot of time looking at it. But the reality is, not everyone is going to make it all the way through the gallery. So the most important concepts need to be early on in the gallery because those are going to have the highest view rates. So imagine it like this, right? This is what I'm saying. On average, a shopper won't consume your entire listing. So this isn't provided by Amazon. Maybe one day Amazon will show us how many, which images in the gallery are getting views, and we'd be able to make a chart like this. But this is all just theoretical right now. Imagine your main image, it's going to get 100% of the views, right? If someone sees it in the search results, everyone's going to see your main image. This is assuming that someone clicks into the listing. And then imagine as you go through each image in the gallery, there's going to be some drop off, right? So everyone's going to see your main image. Maybe 90% of the people see image 2. And then by the time you get down to image 6, depending on the quality of your image gallery, maybe a small subset of the people who are viewing your listing are going to make it all the way through the gallery. The whole point of your image gallery, what I'm going to really push you to do is try to push this curve over, right? So you just want to push this over and push this over. And if you can create a really good looking image gallery, but also a very quick and easy, right? Very fast to understand, fast to look at image gallery, you're going to bump this curve over and over. You're going to want people to not just look at image 2, right? Not just look at image 3, but you're going to want the majority of people to get all the way through your image gallery. And I'm going to give you some strategies on how to do this. So the next thing that I want you to think about, right? If we're thinking, okay, well, we only have a limited window to communicate directly with the brain, right? That means we're also going to have a limited amount of real estate, right? That we can communicate directly with these customers. And so what I want you to think about, my whole theory for how conversion optimization works is we've got all of these things, right? This is a very long list here. We've got all of these things that we could potentially say about the product, right? How it works, what's included, how to clean it, who's it for, sizing, materials, right? Then there's a million things we could say about the product, but there's going to be probably a smaller list. There's things that you care about as a seller, but then there's probably a smaller list of what does the shopper actually need to know, right? So before they buy that red spatula, right, this customer, they have the intent to buy a red spatula. They will buy a red spatula, but what do they need to know before they actually click add to cart? Well, is it actually red? Is it dishwasher safe? What kind of temperatures can it resist? How durable is it? What's the handle like? Does it have something that you can hold it with, right? There's going to be a smaller list of things that the shopper really needs to know before they buy the product. But then we have an even smaller list, and that is what is actually shown on the listing, right? We're working with limited real estate here. So this is going to be your smallest list here. And so what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to try to get the best combination of what the shopper needs to know and what is shown on the listing. And I think I show this in a couple of slides here, but just kind of think of this as like 2 circles. We've got what the shopper needs to know, what's shown on the listing. Where you're going to get the highest unit session percentage where you're going to get the highest conversion rate is when these two circles overlap, when they have the biggest overlap. And then beyond that, right, what's going to drive conversion rates is not only if these circles overlap, right, because maybe I could make images that are very, very complicated, right? I can make images that are very, very complicated and the circles overlap. But remember, these people don't have an unlimited attention span when it comes to looking at your listing. So it's not just enough to have these circles overlap. We're going to have to make their brains, right, their ability to digest and understand what's going on in your images. We're going to have to make that happen as fast as possible. And we'll jump into some strategies for how to do that. I think I'm going to skip through these. Okay. I should change to my view where it shows me my next slide. That'll be a little bit easier. Okay. So let's see what happens. All right. So I think we're still in Essential Framework, but we'll keep rolling here. I think I might be a little bit out of order. But I guess what I want to say too is, so that I guess the section that I'm about to get in next is, this was earlier last year. I put together this presentation, or this part of the presentation, and I've built on it since then. But basically what I want to say is that this presentation, it's based on a detailed analysis of more than 500 plus top selling Amazon accounts. And so just like I was saying earlier that, okay, I get all of these people that are asking, hey, Anthony, can you take a look at my listing? And I wanted to create best practices and kind of essential frameworks for this. What I wanted to do is not just go based on the, these calls that I had. I actually had a VA go through and look at 500 top selling Amazon accounts. And what I found is that same way that I learned this, you can train yourself on how to get better and better at conversion optimization. So if you look at mini galleries at scale, right, what you can start to do is you can start to group images together in terms of into meaningful clusters by order and by type. And so I'm going to explain some of the results that I found from pulling all this information. And I actually had a VA go through, download all of the images from more than 500 of these accounts and put these into groups, right? Groups of, groups and types of images. So let's jump here. And so basically what I wanted to see is what trends exist in the order and the types of images that we found on Amazon. So this is talking a little bit about main images, right? I'm going to skip through this right now. I'm pretty sure we'll show this later, or else I'll come back. But this is what I actually want to talk about. So when I did this research, what I found is that out of these 500 top selling Amazon accounts, more than 75% of the images and all of the images in total fell into one of these 15 groups, right? You have main images, product anatomy, which is basically showing where different parts of the product are, what do they do, metric graphic, which is showing a number to show a tangible benefit of the product, how-to graphic, which is explaining how the product works, applications graphics, which are very effective, and they're going to show who is this for. So I have like a tripod that's holding this camera right now. So like an applications graphic could be saying that, hey, this holds a DSLR, this holds a smartphone, right? Different use case applications so that when someone sees it, they're like, ooh, this power bank is for me. Ooh, this red spatula is for me, right? Because it matches, with my interiors, whatever it might be. A single feature graphic is very similar to a multi-feature graphic. The only difference is this is a very simple graphic, very effective because, again, we want to try to see what the brain, we want to try to make sure that the brain can digest the image as quickly as possible. And so the single feature graphic is just going to focus on one point at a time, whereas a multi-feature graphic is going to try to cover the benefits of multiple features at a time. We have a testimonial graphic, or it's kind of just basically saying some benefits, but it's stated as it's from the viewpoint of a customer. Just going to mute you there, Tom. Let's see. Oh, I don't know if I can do that. Yeah, but maybe Tom, if you could just mute yourself. I think we're getting a little bit of coughing in the background. We've got user-generated content, which is pretty self-explanatory. We've got a safety and technical specifications. We've got a sizing graphic, very common, inclusions, a competitor comparison, which is where you're comparing yourself directly one-on-one with another competitor. We've got a seasonal graphics, and then we've got lifestyle images. And just like with the main image matrix, I guess I will go back just for 1 second. there's obviously overlap, and there's combinations of different versions of these, and there's additional types of images that are not listed in this gallery. The whole point, though, is that when I was doing this analysis, what I'm really trying to encourage people to do is to start to go through and categorize and start to use this language when you're talking about your own gallery. For a lot of people, and myself included, I am not a creative by trade, right? I do not know how to use Adobe Illustrator or Photoshop. I cannot shoot a camera off of manual mode. That is the honest to God truth. But if you see this stuff over and over again, right? If you train your brain to look at this stuff, it's just going to develop your pattern recognition. And so if you just look at all of your images or in your gallery, or you look at all of the images in your niche, it's just going to blur together and be like, okay, these are just other images, right? It's not going to be meaningful. But if you can start to practice saying, this is how I describe this image, this is the type of image that I'm going to call this, now you and your team and the agencies that you work with, you're not just going to have a starting point of saying, okay, we're going from nothing to an image. We're going to say, all right, we know that for our product, right? What does the customer need to know about the product? What's shown in the listing? We can start to very quickly look at it, a niche, and say, well, I know for sure we're going to need a product anatomy graphic. I know for sure we're going to need applications graphic. I know for sure we're going to need a few single feature or multi-feature graphics. And so now you're not just starting from nothing. You have a starting point. You have a way that you're starting to communicate with these concepts. And so the analysis that I'm about to show you, this is also something that you can start doing. This is something that I still do on a regular basis. It's called speed scanning, right? And so what you're going to do with speed scanning is imagine you have all of the images in your niche. And when I'm talking about a niche, I'm talking about you're selling one product, but you're part of a group of sellers all selling something very similar. And so what I'm going to encourage you to do is go and download all of the images for all of the galleries into your niche, place them into a folder, and then you're just going to start clicking through, right? You're going to start clicking through the images and you're going to say, all right, click, 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 click. And then you're going to say, ooh, that's an interesting concept, right? And you're going to say, click, 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 click. Ooh, that's an interesting concept. And what's going to happen over time, you don't need to do this just with your own niche. You should start looking at competitors outside of your niche, different product categories, to get inspiration of saying, what do I notice in terms of trends, in terms of the style of images, in terms of the order that people are having their images in, right? In terms of how they're transmitting the information, in terms of what are their taglines, their copy. You're going to start to see trends over and over again. And what you're going to find is that there are heavy consistencies between the people that are ranked in those first few positions organically and those that are ranked at the top of page 2. You're going to see a very big visual difference between these galleries. And so speed scanning is something you can start doing right now. It's not even this manual anymore, because now you can just do this inside a data dive. You can do this inside a deep dive where you can see, I think for more than 30 competitors at a time now, you can see all of the image galleries all in one spot. So you don't even really need to do this, but I recommend trying to spend about 30 minutes a month, right? Creativity, as much as we talk about it like it is magic, creativity really is not magic. And a lot of what is successful for selling on Amazon really isn't creative in the way that selling off the platform is, right? What we're really doing is there's an established way, there's an established formula, an established format for what's currently working. And a lot of the times, if you can just replicate that, but have this be done in a way that's more visually impressive, and then more importantly than that, communicates with the brain in a more efficient and a faster manner, then you can oftentimes get a higher conversion rate. And so again, I recommend spending about 30 minutes a month looking through the images in the gallery. Start with your immediate niche and then pick some other niches outside of the products you're selling. And you can either do this manually or you can just do it in your head. Start to organize the images start to organize the images by order. So be like, okay, I'm going to look at these 15, 20, 30 competitors in this niche. And I'm going to see, okay, what does everyone have in position 2 and 3? And see if there's a type of image that you're seeing over and over and over again, right? Then also go through and either manually write this down or do this in your head. I recommend writing it down because it's going to stick a little bit more. Add tags and start to categorize these images by type. So again, if I'm looking for all of the 15 images in the gallery, I'm going to start to say, all right, and you can use my secondary image matrix that was a few slides back. You can say, okay, this is a how-to graphic. This is a product anatomy graphic. This is a product inclusions graphic. Wow, here's an image that's nowhere in Anthony's matrix, right? And you're going to come up with your own name for this. And then you're going to start using that name over and over again. So when I'm doing this, this is a breakdown of when I'm doing this myself. Right now, it's a little bit of a manual process, but imagine I have a garlic press here, and then I've got 10 listings in my niche. And then image one is going to be main image, obviously. So this is pulled from the main image matrix, right? I think everyone has probably seen this before, but if you have the product just on a white background versus the product with the inclusions, right? I've got products, with the product in the packaging, I've got the person in it, a person with packaging, right? That's where all of this is pulled from. So when I'm going through and categorizing, right, image number one are going to be all the different types of main images I have for the niche. Image number two is going to be pulled from that secondary image matrix. So if I start to do this, I don't recommend anyone launch a garlic press, highly competitive, and I can show you the numbers to support it inside a data dive. But if I was going to launch a garlic press, if I wanted to at least match the performance of the people in this niche, I can already look image position 2 and 3, and I can say, okay, if I'm selling a garlic press, I'm probably going to want to have an image position 2 or 3. I'm probably going to want to have a how-to graphic, or I'm probably going to want to have a product anatomy graphic, right? I'm going to show how to, right? Like, how does this work? What does a garlic press actually do? And then 2, what are the different anatomy, right? What are the different parts of this garlic press? Like, here's the ergonomic handle. Here's the large chamber that can accommodate multiple garlic cloves, right? Here's the high-grade stainless steel. And you're going to see over and over and over and over again that people are doing the exact same thing. Now, the reason that it would be very difficult to come and compete, even if I follow a very good format and I can look at all the data for this, it's going to be very difficult to create images that are more visually impressive and are more effective in terms of simplicity and speed in which they communicate with the brain, because every seller in this niche, all 10, I can actually go 20 or 30 deep, and I'm going to see people doing this very, very well. With that being said, if you're looking at your niche and you're like, okay, I see like number one seller here, they've got a really good image gallery. Maybe number two, they have a few good images in their gallery, but mostly everyone else is bad. That's going to be a key opportunity for you to come in and say, what can I do, right, in terms of the structure of my image gallery, and then how can I make those more visually impressive and more effective in terms of how quickly they communicate with the brain. So for your own niche, at minimum, I would recommend just replicating this. This is going to take you probably like 30 minutes max to go and set up. And then you're going to be able to very easily see a distribution of what's the frequency in terms of types of images. And then you're going to be able to take some takeaways there about what is working for the highest performing competitors. If we have some time at the end, I can show you kind of practically how you could do this quickly in Data Dive. It doesn't let you do the labeling yet, but you can see all of the image galleries at once. So just imagine if you have the sellers ranked by their search volume percentage or the units sold, I can just switch back and forth between the tabs and very, very quickly fill out an Excel sheet. So I think we're still in Essential Framework. Yeah, because the advanced is all going to be about best practices and things like that. So the next thing that I want to walk you through is a scoring system that I've created to audit images for performance. And so what this is all based on is, again, this is all based on the 500, the analysis of 500 plus Amazon accounts, where I had the VA go download all the images. And I was trying to see, okay, for the low performers, right, what seemed to be the common issues, the common errors. And so what's a scoring system that I could teach people so that rather than me having to get on a call with everyone, how could people actually start to apply the scoring system and figure if they have a image or images in their gallery that are likely to convert and likely to be effective. And so the scoring system consists of 3 points, right? 3 questions here, and you can give half a point for each of these as well. So a total of 3 points, but you can do half a point. Each of these is worth 1 point, obviously, right? You just got to answer these 3 questions. And these 3 questions are in order of importance, right? So the most important one is at the top. The least important one is at the bottom. And so question number 1, right? You're going to ask this about every image in your gallery and you're going to assign it a score. Question number 1 is, do I understand the purpose of the image? right? Question number two is, are all of the concepts within this image related and cohesive? And then number three, is the image visually impressive? Now, this might be a little bit different, right? This might challenge the thoughts of a lot of people, because a lot of people, what they legitimately believe about what is going to drive conversion rates on Amazon is, does my image gallery look good? And the answer is, like, that is the least important thing, right? When I was talking, and this is why I spent so much time really beating this horse to death about the brain being a giant graphics processor and people shopping in this distracted environment, right? Is because the number one priority of your images is to not only line up the circles of, like, this is what the customer needs to know, this is the content of the image, right? That's step one, right? We want those things to overlap, right? So here's one concept. I'm going to show one concept in the image. We got that to overlap. But the more important thing is, how quickly is the brain going to understand and digest, okay, this is what I'm trying to tell them. This is what the customer needs to know. It's like the speed of comprehension. The faster that's going to happen, the more effective the image is going to be. And the reason that you can tell that this works is, who here has been selling in a category where you have some, let's say you've got some Chinese sellers that are selling against you, and their image gallery looks like garbage, right? You're looking at their images and you're like, these don't even look good, right? But they're performing super, super well. Have you asked yourself, is it because it's not actually about how the image looks? It's about that their images, even though it looks like it was made in paint, it's super simple, and the brain can digest it. The brain can understand it much, much faster, much easier, right? It's kind of like if you're charging your phone, right? And you've got like the lightning charger, and then you compare that to a normal charger, or you've got a charger from 10 years ago, a cable from 10 years ago, and you plug in your device, right? It just takes so long to charge the phone, versus when you use the lightning cable, it's like 30 minutes and then your phone is totally charged. That's how we have to think, right? We're communicating directly with the brain. And so number one priority of an image in the gallery is that the customer has to understand what the purpose of your image is. Thing number two, second most important thing, which is also able to get 1 point, which is, are all of the concepts within this image related and cohesive? And I'm going to show examples of all of this in a minute, but like, just think about it like this, right? If you have a graphic that has one singular purpose, how easy is it going to be to communicate directly with the brain and get their brain to say, okay, sweet, here's the thing that I needed to know. I can check that off. I can go to the next image in the gallery. Versus if I have images in the gallery that have 10 concepts in it, right? And someone's in that distracted shopping environment, is what's going to happen? They're going to sit there and they're going to be like, okay, here's thing number one. Here's thing number two. I think this is thing number three. Let me double check. Okay, yeah, that is thing number 3, 4, 5. Or are they going to look and be like, shit, this is way too complicated. I'm going to go bounce. I'm going to go click on one of those other tabs that I have open, right? And so thing number two is, are all of the concepts in the image related and cohesive? We don't want to distract someone with extra information. We want to be laser focused, right? We want to communicate with the brain as quickly as possible. And then third, the least important thing, but if you can do all three of these at once and get 3 out of 3, that's really where you're going to drive conversion rates. Is this image visually impressive, right? We do want to have good looking images. I don't want to make it seem like that's not important. What I'm saying is, you need to prioritize this, followed by this, followed by this, and that's what's going to lead to your highest conversion rates. So let's see an example of this scoring system in action. And so what you're going to notice, just like I was saying before, right? Inside of a niche, you're going to see the same type of image. We had that secondary image gallery. You're going to see the same type of image over and over and over and over again. In this case, all three of these images have the exact same purpose, right? So remember, what does the customer need to know about the product? Before they buy this travel neck pillow, they want to know, okay, me personally, if I'm buying a pillow, I sleep on my side, right? I sleep on the other side. I sleep to the front, right? So this is all about head position, and does it give you 360-degree support all around your neck, right, for this neck pillow. And so all three of these graphics are trying to accomplish the exact same thing, but they have 3 different levels of effectiveness, right? And it all comes down to that scoring system. So if I'm looking at image number 1, this is going to get 1 point, right? Because for sure, when I'm looking at this image, do I understand the purpose of this image? Well, sure, yeah, I can look at this and I can see, okay, 360-degree support, right? But when we're asking ourselves, what about question number 2, right? So I'd get 1 point for do I understand the purpose of the image? But question number 2, are all of the concepts within this image related and cohesive, right? And so we got 360-degree support, but then if you can zoom in, and this is like even a little bit hard to view on mobile, it's showing me not just about 360-degree support, not just that this is going to support my neck in any position. It's also talking about the density of the foam, right? It's telling you it's got a double hump design, right? It's telling you it's got a curved design, right? It's like all of these other things. It's like zooming in. It's hard to see. So I understand the purpose of the image, but it's got extra layers in here that are not related and cohesive. And then in terms of visual impressiveness, compared to the other 2 images in the gallery, I'd say, yeah, it's not that visually impressive. It's just some text, right? And then some kind of confusing things with this chart that you have to look at. There's just a lot going on. So I'm only going to give this 1 point. Now let's move over to image 2, right? So do I understand the purpose of this image? Okay, this one's even clearer, right? It says there's 3 comfortable ways to support the head and neck. It's showing me these different positions, so I can do it on the right. I can put my head back, which is supine, and I can put my head to the left, right? So any head position, this is going to work. So I understand the purpose of the image. All of the elements are related and cohesive. So now instead of showing me different parts of the pillow, it's just showing me the different head positions. It's showing me 360. It's showing me I can rotate my head with these little arrows, right? And so the only reason I'm not giving it 3 stars here, three points here, is because, yeah, it's visual. Yeah, this is, I guess I could give it half a point, maybe 2.5 for being visually impressive. But comparing it to this, right? This, I understand the purpose of the image. All of the concepts in the image are related and cohesive, but then I'm giving it that 3rd point because this is the most visually impressive image out of the 3, right? Instead of using 50% of the pixel space to show this pillow here, I'm going to spend 70% of the pixel space, right, showing the different head positions. And in fact, the most common head position, which is someone sleeping forward, is not right here, front and center. Then I've got the side, and then I've got a combination of the 2, which is front to side, right? So I'm going to give this one 3 points because I understand the purpose of the image. All of the items in the image, all the concepts in the image are related and cohesive. And then this is definitely a visually impressive image. So I'd give this one 3 points out of 3. I hope that makes sense. I can answer more questions about that if we have that a little bit later. So there's one of the tests that you can do. The next thing that I'm going to show you, again, this is all still in a central framework. I think we're doing okay on time. We've been running for 1 hour. So I think we're doing okay. So the next thing you can do in addition to image scoring, I recommend go through all of the images in your gallery. If anyone here came to Camp Ecom, you'll know that we did this exercise live, right? This image scoring, we gave people a bunch of images, they were scoring. And then what you do after scoring the images is you don't just stop there and say, okay, wow, there's 3 out of the 6 images in my gallery I gave 1 point to, or 1.5 points to. You don't just say, okay, wow, nice, I've got the score. What do you do after that, right? What's the actionable step? Is now you go and try to see, okay, well, can I go back and try to create an image gallery where every single one of those images, every single one of those opportunities, right, is going to get 3 out of 3 points. So the next thing that you can do, and this is all about speed of comprehension, right? If someone looks at the image in the gallery, if I look at this, how quickly can I look at this and my brain is going to understand what that purpose of the image is, right? So if this is one of those things on the list that the customer needs to know before they buy the product, how quickly is their brain going to say, okay, I'm a side, I sleep on my side on a plane. That's the purpose that I'm getting this for. How quickly can they look at this and say, okay, this pillow is going to accomplish that. Let me go on and see if I can check the next box. Let me go on and see if I can check the next box. So how the 5-second rule works, or the 5-second test works, is what you're going to do is you're going to show your image to someone who has no prior knowledge of the product, right? This can be someone on your internal team. Most likely everyone on your internal team is going to know about this. I recommend doing this with family, or you can use a polling service like PickFu. Show your image to someone who has no prior knowledge of the product. Allow them to inspect the image for only 5 seconds. And that's serious, right? You're actually going to count this out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Then you're going to take the image away and you're going to say, what was the point of that image? And if what that person tells you is very different from what you thought the purpose of that image should be, you're going to have problems on Amazon. right? You're going to have problems with someone who's shopping in that distracted environment. And it seems like that, I don't know if it seems like a short or a long time, but what you're going to find is that that is a very, very narrow time frame for someone to, their brain to digest what's going on. And so the point is, if someone, they can't understand the image in 5 seconds, most likely someone's not going to be able to understand it on the Amazon platform. And like I was showing earlier, right? If only 2 out of the 6 images in your gallery can pass the 5-second test, that means you only have 2, where all of your competitors potentially have 6 or more images in their gallery to check off those boxes in the customer's brain and to do it as fast as possible. Ideally, what we want to have is we want to have a speed of comprehension that is as high as possible. So let me show you an example of this. I actually did this with my sister. I want to make sure my camera is charging. It's good. Okay. So I actually did this example with my sister, and you can kind of get an idea of how this works and why it's so important. But this is for a cooling towel. So I think most people are familiar with this product. You dip it in some water, right? You like shake it out and it gets super cool. So it cools you down very easily. And so what I did is I showed her these images, and I had in my mind what I thought the purpose of this image would be. And what I did is I let her look at this image for 5 seconds, and then I took that image away, and then I asked her, okay, what do you think the purpose of that image was? So this first image here, this one passed the 5-second test. And so what I put down, what I thought was the stated goal of this image is that this cooling towel works because it's made with advanced materials, right? It's like, you know, all these different things, that it's light and slim, it's got a soft texture, right? High quality fabrics, right? It's a good product. And she got that right? She said the product's made with high quality fabric. Cool, that one passes the 5-second test, we move on. But look at this one here. The original thought with what this image is supposed to accomplish is that there are many applications for how to use this towel, right? You can use it when you're hiking, right? You can use it when you're sick. You can use it when you're working out at the gym. You can use it for, like, if you have inflammation in your body and you want to like get, you know, make your kind of like putting an ice pack on. Summer cooling, right, is on here. So it's like this is an applications graphic, right? Many more applications for how to use this towel. What she got from this, and again, this might seem kind of silly if this was my product. We're sellers, right? So we know our product inside out. We know our images, and sometimes we have a big bias when it comes to the effectiveness of our own images. What she got from this image is that you can use this product outdoors. Not really the point here, right? If people are like, man, I'm going to use this cooling towel when I'm sick or when I'm working out, it's very possible that someone shopping on Amazon might totally miss the point of this graphic. This one here worked at the end. There are multiple ways to wear the towel. This is super clear here. You can see the person wearing it. You can see all the different head positions. So again, what I really want you to think about with the 5-second test is, like, if this doesn't line up, if it doesn't match, right, you're going to have issues. So what you want to do is you want to check for comprehension and optimize accordingly, right? You're going to audit your images by using the 5-second rule. So again, if in your gallery, if image number 1 and image number 3, if they don't pass the 5-second test, most likely people on Amazon, their brain is not going to register what's going on. It's not going to be effective, and it's not going to drive conversions. What we want to have is we want to have all of these boxes be checked, right? That is the big end goal. And so one of the things you can do in a team setting, if you work at a co-work or if you've got people on your team, is try to recruit like 5 to 10 non-creative members of your team, ideally people who haven't seen the images. Likely people are going to already have some idea of the product if they're working on the products. But if you're working on new creative concepts, get like 5 to 10 people, non-creative members of your team. You're going to kind of explain the premise of what they're about to see, explain that they're about to see, this is going to be a kind of a test. They're going to see blank slides. They're going to be numbered. And then you're going to have like a Google form ready. And basically what you're going to do is you're going to show them each image for 5 seconds. You're going to have like a blank slide or a black slide in between. You're going to let them look at the image for 5 seconds. You're going to flip it to a black slide. You already have a Google form that they have pulled up on their laptop or on their phone. And it's just going to be a simple question. What do you think the purpose of this image is? And while they're answering the question, they're not going to be able to see it. You're just going to have a black slide, black screen up on the slides, right? Or on your Zoom call. And then they're going to type in the answer. And what you're going to do is you're going to analyze the responses and you're going to optimize accordingly. If you come back and like 20% of your team or 20% of this random group of people out of 100% of people is getting this right, probably need to go back and think, is the speed of comprehension, is it going to be high enough for Amazon? Because if that's low, you're just missing out on opportunities to, to convert the customer. Now, for everyone who comes back on July 12th, I spent $1,000 of my own money with PickFu, testing this concept with PickFu, and we're going to really dive into this on July 12th. I've been running a ton of PickFu tests, going to top performers in a niche, and then comparing that to someone on page 2. And I'm testing every image in the gallery. And I'm doing this, it's a lot of tests. So you're going to see a lot of data on July 12th. But basically what it does is, like, I'm trying to figure out a way that we can get a comprehension score without having to, like, go and ask your family or friends, or without having to use your internal team because they might be a little bit biased or have knowledge of the product. But basically how it works is, I'm just going on to PickFu, I'm uploading an image, and I'm saying, what do you think the purpose of this image is? It's a little bit more complicated than that. I have some additional context in there in the question. But what I'm doing is I'm trying to get a comprehension score. And it's just what percentage of people polled get your intended purpose matches what a group of people who have no knowledge of the product, what they think the intended purpose of the image is. And what you're going to find, I've showed little bits and pieces of this in other presentations in the past couple of weeks I've been on the road. What you're going to find is that there's a lot of images that people just get totally wrong. And again, you're going to find too, there's a high correlation between the highest performers, people who have the highest conversion rates, and then, like magic, they have a very high percentage comprehension score. And the people that are not doing well, the people that are like, page 2, bottom of page 2, you're going to see that generally they have a very low comprehension score. So you definitely want to join on July 12th, and you're going to see a little bit more about this. So I think this is where we would go through and do practically. We'd go through and we'd test some of this, but this is, so this is more for like an interactive portion, but we're not going to do that because I don't have the worksheets, and it's already 7:12. So what we're going to do, we're about to get into the best practices. So we have 2 more sections left. We have best practices, and we have future considerations. Future considerations is where we're going to get all into AI. So we're going to take we're not going to do a 15-minute break. We're going to take a 3-minute break. So at 7:15, we're going to be back on this call, and then we're going to jump into it because I want to keep rolling. I want to have plenty of time for Q&A. So I'm going to shut off my camera. If you need to go to the bathroom, if you need to get a water or coffee, come back in 3 minutes, and we're going to jump back into this. I'll see everyone in 3 minutes. All right. We're going to keep rolling here. I guess what I'll say before we get into this next section is, if you're in Inner Circle, you might have seen some of this before. If you're new, welcome. When I would go to conferences, and I go to a lot of conferences with my own brands, with brands that I'm working on, with ones that I'm consulting for, I find that I get really good information, right? A lot of people tell me after my talks that it's an overload of information. So what I recommend is just try to do one thing. Actually commit to yourself. Write down, tomorrow I'm going to go and score all the images in my gallery, right? Next week, I'm going to go and categorize all the images by type in my niche, and I'm going to see what are the highest performers doing, right? Then week 3, I'm going to do one thing. I'm going to go and look at an image gallery outside of my current category that I'm selling in. My video on? Yeah, it's on. I'm going to look at a group of images in a gallery that's outside of what I'm selling, right? Commit to yourself that you're going to do one thing, because I talk to people year after year, and they see my presentations, they see my talks, and they're like, wow, that was really great. That was really fantastic information. And then I go and talk to them, and they have the same image gallery, the exact same strategy that they've been using year after year after year after year. So what you really have to do if you want to start to be effective is you have to start don't try to implement all of this tomorrow. Try to implement one thing that you get out of this presentation and do that in week 1. Then pick another thing, right? Something in your notes, and try to do that in week 2. And just take these little steps over time. Schedule at the end of the month that you're going to do 30 minutes of speed scanning, of going through images and say, yes. Ooh, there's an interesting concept. Save that image, put it into a Google Drive. So you have these inspiration images that are outside of your gallery that you can start to go and apply and use in your own gallery, right? When we're thinking about those, all of those different secondary image types, go and start to build a folder of, here's some really good examples of inclusions graphics. Here's really good examples of main image graphics. right? Start to build that out. Okay. So that's what I'll say. Make sure that you actually are taking action. Don't just be sitting here. Don't just be listening. Don't let your AI go and take the notes for you. You actually have to go in and do the work. The sellers that win in the end are the ones that are taking consistent action day in and day out. It's just those marginal gains. The marginal gains stack up, and those are the people that end up dominating their categories. So with that being said, now let's jump into best practices. Gotta click here. And Neil, I see that you've got your hand raised. We're going to take Q&A all the way in the end, but make sure you write down your question. I will stick around as long as Q&A is going for, because we might be a little bit over 8:30, although I think we're going to get through this next part in about 45 minutes, and then the future considerations is probably about half an hour. So first thing that I'm going to talk about is optimizing for main images. Basically what I can tell you, and I've done a lot of main image testing, right? Like I said, our agency, Virtuous Graphics, back in the day was one of the first agencies to start doing high volume variations for image testing. And so what I will tell you is when it comes to main images, I never have any idea what's going to work, what's going to give me the highest click-through rate, right? That's just the honest truth. What I would recommend doing is go to your creative team, go to the agency that you're working with, show them this main image matrix and say, we already have a product on a white background because that's the default for Amazon. But now what I want you to do is I want you to go and start to create variants of the main image that are somewhere along this main image matrix. One that's showing the product on a white background, one that's showing the product and then some additional parts, one that's showing the packaging and then all of the things that are included, right? One that's showing it with models if you can, right? Not every product needs a model or needs to have a model, should show a model, right? So something along this main image matrix is what's going to work for you. Now, what a lot of people say is they look at this main image matrix and they say, Anthony, right? I can't do this for my main image. This isn't the product on a white background. And what you're going to find and what it's hard to see your future when you're starting at your past. Tony Evans in the waiting room. I like that. Okay. Yeah, that's good. Oh, no, this is someone's name. I don't know. I'm going to admit them. That's like their name on the thing. I don't know. I thought that was like a comment. I was like, why did that show up for me? Anyway, back to the content. So what I'll say is when I did that analysis and I had the VA download 500 plus accounts and put all of those into a Google Drive and categorize them, what I found is that Amazon's platform, and I've known this for years, but I just had to show it, Amazon's platform is full of what people say are main image violations, right? More than 65% of the main images I looked at contained what people would say is gray hat techniques. And so I want to clear this up because this is actually from Amazon in terms of service. And what they specifically say is that main images must be professional photographs of the actual product. Graphics, illustrations, mock-ups, and placeholders are not allowed. And they must not show excluded accessories or props that might confuse the customer, right? So what Amazon is doing here, and I used to work at Amazon, what I'll tell you is every day they're drilling into your head. They are all about customer centricity, right? They want the buying experience to be as good as possible for the customer when they're shopping. And so what they really want to avoid when they're writing this TOS is they want to avoid sellers doing things that are going to confuse the customer, that are going to mislead the customer, or things that are intentionally clickbaity. And so what Amazon is doing when they write this terms of service is they're putting in a terms of service, right? That is one terms of service that is covering millions of products that are sold, millions of very different products that are sold on the platform, right? And so they only have one terms of service for images, which is extremely vague. And I think that's actually intentional, right? What they're doing is Amazon is intentionally giving us vague guidelines. It's up to us to focus on customer centricity, right? So what you have to do is when you're creating your main images, you have to ask yourself, am I intentionally being misleading? Am I intentionally putting something in here that's going to confuse the customer? Am I intentionally putting something in here that is clickbaity? Or am I doing something that is legitimately going to help the customer to make a better buying decision when they're buying a product? The other thing to keep in mind about main image violations is it's not going to typically, I don't think in any case going to lead to your account getting suspended or getting a performance notification. The only thing that's going to happen when you have a main image that might potentially be pushing the lines in terms of what is gray area is that image is going to get suppressed. And then if you have another white background image, you can just upload that, right? So if you have another one ready to go, my recommendation is to keep pushing the envelope. Anything you see there on the main image matrix, I think you're going to be probably in a good position to do. And so I recommend kind of pushing the envelope on it. Now, if you're very risk adverse, one of the things that you can do to, I call this getting permission on risky main images, is you come up with an idea for a risky main image. And then when you're writing your test and manage your experiments, for those of you who don't know, manage your experiments is a split testing tool inside of Amazon that allows you to split test your main image. You can split test your A+ content. You can split test your title. There's a few other things, your bullet points now, I think. You can actually A/B test these inside of the Amazon platform. Now, the interesting thing is when you're writing your managed experiments, what you have to understand is that the manager experiment test is actually approved by a human being. It's not approved by a computer. That's why these actually take sometimes a few days to get approved. And so when you're writing the hypothesis of your manager experiment test, right, you have your main image, right, the safe one or the one that you currently have, then you have the one that's a little bit more risky. When you're writing that hypothesis, write it in customer-centric language, right? Think that there's someone at Amazon, they have an SOP for, okay, here's the types of experiments that I should approve. Here's the types of main images that I should approve. And if I say, hey, look, I want to change my background to a black background because it's going to get me more sales and I want to make a lot of money, the person's probably going to be like, the guide here says that I can't approve a non-white background main image. But if you say, hey, I'm selling a glow-in-the-dark product, right? And I want to show people, I want to show the customer that this product glows in the dark. And I think it's going to be a better buying experience. It's going to show more accurate colors. And it's going to be more customer centric all around if I have this main image as a black background. What you're going to find is that from time to time, and it's depending on how good the hypothesis is, you can actually get them to approve the main image. Someone at Amazon is going to let you run that main image experiment test. Now, is the black background image going to convert better? That's something you're just going to have to test and see. But if you're looking to push the boundaries, this is a really helpful hack. I started sharing this like 3 years ago in Vegas, and I've heard from a bunch of people. It doesn't always go through on the first time, but sometimes you submit it. It's not like the same person is going to approve it. I've seen good success with getting what people would say are just, really not typically okay main images getting approved. So here's some other best practices for main image. This is something that we call eye candy. So we've got the product here, and obviously this is protein powder, right? There's like no peanut butter inside the protein powder. There's no peanuts. But what I'm doing is I'm kind of reinforcing what is a key attribute of the product. Or here, the product packaging doesn't actually have this label on it, 25 grams of protein. This one here, you can almost not even tell that this isn't part of the product packaging, right? We've got the flavor and we've got the amount of protein here. So you could either upload these into Amazon and they might actually let you put it up just in this form. But again, if it's not going through or the image keeps getting suppressed, try the version that doesn't have any of these decals or doesn't have any of this eye candy and say, hey, we're testing an alternate version of the main image. What we find is that because our packaging is so bright and green, people don't often see the flavor. And so we like to reinforce that this is peanut butter flavor. And we like to do that by putting this icon here. We find that this gives a better buying experience to the customer because they can see in advance of clicking in the listing if this is the flavor of protein powder that they're going to want, right? We like to put on the 22 grams of protein because it's really important that our customers understand what the protein amounts are in this per scoop of protein or per serving of protein. You put that through and you might very well find that those can get approved. If you look for protein powder, you're going to see that everyone is doing this, right? And so if everyone in your category is reinforcing these key points, right, this isn't clickbaity, this isn't confusing, this isn't distracting. And I think that's why people at Amazon, I'm sure they train the team in addition to the SOP, and they're saying, look, you're deciding what's going to be allowed, what's not going to be allowed for millions of different images. Use some critical thinking here, and you don't have to follow this directly to the letter in terms of what you're allowed to do. Have some critical thinking here, and if it's going to be in the best interest of the customer, then think about doing that. So one of the best practices for main images here is consider alternative non-white backgrounds when optimizing for main image. So like, again, if I was gonna, let's say I have this same image here, but it's just on a white background. If I was running this through managed experiments and I wanted to get this approved, I'm just gonna say, hey, look, we're testing an alternate version of our main image, right? We've already got the dog on here so I can see it's a dog bed. But hey, we're testing an alternate version of our main image. This dog bed is specifically for small dogs, and we want to show what kind of space that it's going to be fit in, that it's going to fit in, right? And if we have it on a white background, it's kind of hard to tell that. Or we want to show that what kind of styling interior is this going to be best compatible with, and we feel like this is going to help the customer to make a better buying decision, right? So test that. Another tip here, and this is credit to our friend Tomer. He runs another community called Top Dog. And this is actually his slides. I asked him for permission to share this, but when you are making your main image, this might be a little counterintuitive, but you actually want to make your image vertically oriented. And what's going to happen is your product is actually going to display a lot larger in search results. So what you can see here is that look how much larger this blender is here versus these images here, which are more of a square ratio, right? Because everything on Amazon's platform is optimized for mobile. It's like 70% of all of the traffic on Amazon comes through mobile, right? We're going to have a vertically oriented main image. It's going to look a lot larger. So that's just a really quick hack that you can apply. And so this is actually from a case study that I did when I was consulting. This would have been like 3 years ago at this point. Many examples of main image eye candy giving big results. And so this was for a patio, lawn, and garden furniture. We added in some eye candy there. I won't say what it is because it'll reveal the product. And we found a 12% increase in click-through rate. So this is pretty powerful stuff. Again, test different versions, different variations along that main image matrix. You're going to find something that works for you there. When you're going through and you're testing your images, right? I've been talking about manager experiments for years. Every time I'm at a conference, I say, okay, everyone, raise your hand if you're doing main image testing through manager experiments. And like 20% of the people raise their hand. Very few sellers are doing this. What I want you to think about is when you're testing different versions of your main image, I never know what's going to work. The only way I'm going to know what's going to work is I'm going to try different concepts. I'm going to have a guess or a hypothesis for what's going to work, but I'm only going to learn from actually testing. And so these main image experiments, they take typically a minimum of 4 weeks to run. But when you can see a gain, if I can get a 2% gain, 3% gain, 4% gain, and I can do that one experiment lasting for a week, that's a month. I do that month after month after month after month. Over time, it doesn't matter if I'm wrong for a little bit. Over time, if I'm able to increase that, that is just something that I learn over time from testing. And my competitors, they're going to have to go through that same exact process to get to that same point. So that was all about main images. Remember, main images are not really a conversion tool, right? These are really just a click-through rate tool. Everything in your product detail page is what's actually going to drive conversions. So now let's move into secondary images. We already talked about this a little bit, right? Auditing your images using the 5-second rule. And this next set of best practices is all going to be about what steps that you can take practically to increase the speed of comprehension in your listing and have your each of the images in your gallery pass the 5-second test. And ideally, someone can understand the point of the image in a lot less than 5 seconds. Basically, the takeaway is like if you're doing the 5-second test and someone, if their response is longer than a couple of simple sentences or it's just flat out incorrect, then likely the information you're trying to convey will likely be lost on Amazon. So tip number 1 here is work on making your secondary images not just mobile friendly, but ultra mobile friendly. And if you ever want to see really good examples of images that have a really high speed of conversion, just go check out very competitive categories. So like protein powder is a good one, Garcinia Cambogia, Anchor, they have power banks. Like these categories are so competitive, they have to be really quick, really direct, really to the point. So if I'm looking at these images here, not only do they look great, but speed of comprehension is extremely fast, right? If I'm putting both of these images through the 5-second test, there's no chance anyone's going to get this wrong because they're so clear. They're so straightforward, right? It's telling me, all right, here's the flavor. Here's how much protein. Here's the macronutrients inside of it. It's telling you 100% premium whey, right? 2 scoops per serving. You're going to look at that. There's no possibility that you're going to get this wrong. Another thing that you can do to help with this speed of comprehension, to help with these images passing the 5-second test, is if you're showing a feature of the product, try to do this anatomy graphic with this hyper zoom, right? So now I'm able to see, right? It's zooming in. It's not just saying I've got luxury memory foam, and zooming in on the foam, and then it's showing you what it looks like. So if I look at this, my brain is going to be able to click right away. Okay, I understand the purpose of this image. Another thing that you can do is if you have a product anatomy graphic, you should try to limit it to a maximum of 3 points. That's just kind of a general rule for me. And then if you need to, break this apart into multiple images. So typically I think we just changed the slides on this, but typically there was another graphic here that showed a hammock and it just had 3 points. This would be an example of, or I guess that's what we're showing here, is like, this is a product anatomy graphic and it's like, okay, premium hammock, and it's showing you part 1, part 2, part 3. It's easy for the brain to digest. It's easy for them to see. Versus if I look at this over here, I've got like, here's a point, here's a point, here's a point. Here we're talking about sizing. So there's just a lot going on in this graphic, right? And so what I want to try to do is minimize the risk that someone's going to look at the image, they're going to say, this is too confusing, and they're either going to skip that image, which is no good, or they're going to bounce from your listing entirely and go look at another competitor that is potentially doing a better job. Whenever possible, avoid relying solely on standalone lifestyle images rather. And the reason for this is if someone looks at an image in this, out of one of these two images, they might look at it and understand what the purpose of this image is, or they might look at it and be confused. Like, what are we selling here? Is this for a hammock? Is this for a hat? Is this for a dating service? I don't know. But what you can do is you can leverage text to increase the comprehension speed. You can do this to also increase the probability that this is going to pass the 5-second test. So we still have a beautiful lifestyle image. We still have a beautiful lifestyle image, but we've added some text to kind of reinforce what the purpose of that image is. So it's like, hey, here's the purpose of the image. Here's the beautiful lifestyle image. Versus just having the lifestyle image where you have some potential for confusion. This is another example here of how text can increase the comprehension speed of a lifestyle image, right? So all three of these graphics, they're trying to do the exact same thing, right? But going from left to right, these images are getting a little bit better and a little bit better because this is showing you how to use, right? But now we're adding some text here. And this one I like even a little bit better because it's even more simple, right? We don't have this background. We don't see any of these like clothes or if this is a wall in the background. It's just really simple, right? Like step 1, 2, 3, 4, easy to read, easy to follow, quick for the brain to comprehend, right? Think about you're using a lightning cable versus you're using a cable from 5 years ago, right? You want that speed of comprehension to be as fast as possible. If you're doing a metrics graphic or a sizing graphic, I recommend trying to quantify the metrics. Don't just show numbers. Make sure you're quantifying these numbers in a relatable and a tangible way. So both of these graphics are trying to show sizing for this spatula, but this one is actually linking this to saying, okay, the large is going to be, okay, it's going to hold this size thing. The small is going to hold this size thing. The fish turner is for fish. The reason this is particularly effective is if you're looking at this and you're like, okay, right, you can get some idea of like, this is what I normally use the product for. And then when you see that there, when you see it linked, it's gonna click for you. Same thing with sizing is our brain typically doesn't work in like how big is 9.8 inches? How big is 11.2 inches versus 9.8, or I guess that's 8.8 inches. Like how much bigger is that? Versus if we have something in the graphic that's giving us a point of scale, it's going to help it work out much better. Right? This is another really good example of this. This is for this dog bed. We're not just showing that it's 8 inches by 24 inches. We're showing that, hey, based on the different size dog you have, oh, hey, this is the dog I have. I know I need to, or this is the size dog I have. Now I know I need to order the extra large dog bed, right? It's very, very clear. I can't stress this enough. I see this all the time where people put metrics in their image gallery and it's just not quantified. Look at this, right? This is a very competitive category. If you ever need inspiration for images, I recommend checking out power banks. This is Anchor, right? One of the top selling products, electronic products on Amazon. What I like about this is they're not telling me how many milliamp hours it is, or it is, right? But it's not the focal point of this graphic. And this one doesn't show it at all. All it's showing you is that If you have an iPhone, if you have a Samsung, if you have an iPad, right, it's going to be able to charge the device many times. If you're looking at this, you're saying, wow, for almost any phone, it's going to charge it at least 2, if not 3 times, right? So it's really quantifying these metrics in a tangible way. Got this really nice headline here: keep your batteries green. We already talked about this in terms of image scoring. This is probably the number one issue that I see with people's secondary image galleries, is that they're trying to tackle multiple concepts in a single graphic, right? So this image here is quite strong. It's very simple: high speed of comprehension, because it's showing me that, hey, this plastic bulb is shatterproof. Even if I drop it, it's not going to crack open. It's not going to break open and potentially hurt someone or cause issues or need to be cleaned up. Versus this one here, right? It's telling me, I mean, look at everything that's going on. It's talking about sizing. I think we've got a misspelling on sockets here, right? We've got more sizing here. We're telling me what the threading is. Like, people need to know. It's showing me like the temperature that it's running at, right? Bulb type, like all this information, right? So is this going to pass question 2 of that test? Or all of the images in this related? Are all the concepts in this image related and cohesive? Like, no, I don't think so. This one, yes. Do I understand the purpose of the image? Yes. Are all of the concepts in the image related and cohesive? Yes. Is the image visually impressive? Yes. 3 points. This one, I don't know. What's the purpose of this image? Are we trying to talk about sizing? Are we trying to talk about wattage? Right? So this is probably going to get like 1.5, 2 points maybe. These used to be really hot back in the agency days. We used to make a lot of these competitor comparisons where you've got your product, all checks, and then the competitors were trying to make them look bad. Stay away from that. I don't think customers buy it anymore. I think they've seen it way too commonly on the Amazon platform. So if you do want to do a competitor comparison, make sure it actually is on some tangible benefits. I don't think Zule, they're a real big seller of garlic presses and other kitchen accessories. I don't think they even use this graphic anymore. What I recommend, I don't think there's really any point to talking about your competitors. Only focus on your own product. The only time that I would say to include a competitor comparison is if you have a tangible benefit. So if I'm selling this pool and mine is like 11 inches larger than the competitors, okay, I can see why people would want to buy something that's larger. They've got kids, they want more space, they don't want a tiny pool, right? If I'm selling a battery pack and mine has this multi-protect, which is going to prevent overcharging, and the competitors don't, then yeah, that's fine to say. But if you're trying to just like seed some doubt, I used to give the advice to try to make graphs like this, right? This is like 2017, 2018 Amazon selling. Don't do this anymore. If you're going to do a competitor comparison, you better have a really good tangible benefit. Otherwise, you have limited real estate in your image gallery. Focus on your product. Focus on the things that the customer actually needs to know about your product, not about your competitors. If you have seasonal or gifting graphics, we're getting into Q4. Try to make these as specific as possible, right? So this one here on the left-hand side, it's great. You've got a giftable item, right? It's great that we're saying that it's a gift for any occasion, right? But it's a little bit better if you're saying, hey, right, this is for men. This is a gift for men. The reason I have best in a question mark with no image there is because it's really hard to find actually good examples of this. Like, I think how this could be better if you're saying, hey, this is a Father's Day gift. Go on to one of the generative image creators, get a really good picture of a dad who's shaving, right? Maybe like a dad next to their son and they're both looking in the mirror and they're, one's shaving and the kid is like kind of following along, right? Or it's like someone handing the gift to someone. Most of the time we use kind of this general, it's like you put the thing in front of a Christmas tree. Try to get a little bit more specific, make it click, right? You want to see that smile on the dad's face. You want to see the product in action. You want to see a face there. If you're trying to do secondary images, flat lay shots are naturally minimalistic and also cost effective. So if you are launching a product and you're working on a budget, this is something that you can do yourself, or you can work with a creative agency. Just put the product, put relevant props next to it, right? So we've just got the product, relevant props, and then a headline, right? The headline can just, my mouse just lost that. Should be back now. Cool. Relevant props, flat lay, headline. If you join on July 12th, you're going to get a lot of these image templates. Definitely want to join that. If you don't place branding in every image, again, think about what I was talking about earlier with the scoring system. One concept per image, right? I do not recommend, unless your brand is big like Koozie and people know your name, don't put this into every single image, because all that's happening is you're just taking up pixel space and you're getting away from the key point of the image. I would much rather, if your brand is not as large as Koozie, right, you can still keep your branding colors in here. You can still make it look like the image gallery is cohesive, but I would rather take up a lot more of this space, either showing the image, having a lot bigger headline, because again, what do I want to do? I want to communicate directly with the brain. I want to say, this is the point of this image. Here's the image to look at, right? So yeah, this is based on just another case study, auditing lifestyle images using the 5-second test. This is probably one of the biggest things that you can do. It's like, if you can just get all of the images in your gallery to pass the 5-second test, if you can get them to pass that 3-point scoring system with everything with a 3, you're gonna have a higher likelihood of increasing your unit session percentage. Rather than just trying to go and say, hey, can I make this image gallery look better? Right? If you can actually try to think, how can I increase speed of comprehension? How can I increase the probability that someone is going to understand my intended purpose of the image? Right? It's gonna be a lot better than just saying, like, going to a creative agency and say, my images look bad. Can you make these look better? And so in this example, this was actually a case study that I did myself on a home and garden product. We did secondary image updates based on the 5-second test, and we were able to see a 19% increase in unit session percentage. That is quite strong. Okay, so this is the last thing in the advanced section, and this is all about, so this is all about identify the purpose of the graphic and then optimize this. So this is the last of 3 case studies, and this is all about why it's so important to optimize for flow of information, right? For what I was talking about earlier, speed of comprehension. Do that first, and then optimize for aesthetic appeal only after you have gotten the purpose of the image really clear, right? Once you've gotten that speed of comprehension up. So yeah, let's go into it. So this is actually something I did back when I was at PickFu. I really like this example. I worked with our current designer here at Stellar Systems Data Dive. I still get to work with her. Her name is Natasha. She helped me put together this case study, and I think it was really, really effective. And I've explained this before, but I like to give this one because I think it's really, really clear about the importance of focusing on speed of comprehension, on information flow, rather than just visual appeal. So in this example here, we worked through many images in a gallery. We optimized like main images, secondary images. We did a bunch of work on this, kind of show the process of testing, iterative testing, and variations. And what we were working with is, this is a product inclusions graphic, right? So it was one of the 16 categories of secondary images that you saw in that matrix. And the whole point of this graphic is it's going to show the product, and it's going to show everything that's included in the product, right? So this is the original image. And what we did is we said, okay, let's come up with different versions of these image variations, and let's see which ones, let's test them and see which ones people like the best. So this was the original image. We came up with 3 different variations, and then we tested it all against each other, and we found out that people like this. We tried some different ideas, right? Never knowing what's going to work. We had these squares. We had it on a white background with the products kind of exploding out of the box in the packaging. We had the, squares plus the packaging, got this little bonus thing, right? We tested a bunch of different things. What we found is that people really liked this image. Now, what you're going to see is that, like, this image looks like garbage, right? It's actually just their main image, and then it's just a simple text list and then some extra text. It's actually hanging off. It's like someone didn't realize that they could just make the text smaller. This is actually what the main image looked like. So we created this new version, which I don't think anyone here is going to disagree. Like, this looks a lot better than this, right? So what was very interesting is we created an image that looked better. It had much more visual appeal. But then when we tested it against the original, and people who have seen this before, right, you'll already know the answer, but which one won, right? Why did this new image, which looks a lot better, why did it perform so poorly compared to the original, right? The original image actually was getting 70% of the votes versus 32% for the better looking image. How does this happen? And you probably are wondering this, right? Like, someone's selling in your category and their images look like garbage, but you just can't seem to beat them, right? They're gaining rank on you. Your PPC costs are going up. All of these things are happening, right? Why is this happening? And the reason why The reason why is because when we actually read through the PickFu feedback, we did these tests on PickFu, what we found is that for this type of image, and you're going to see this when we go into the templates and the justification on July 12th, for this type of image, which is a product inclusions graphic, what people want to see is they want to see a list, right? If you're looking at what's included in a product, they want to see a list of like what's actually included. They don't want to go and look and see, okay, well, like I'm looking for scissors, there's my scissors. People's brains, right? They're normal, they're accustomed, they're used to reading a list. Then maybe they'll go and look and see, okay, I see data cable, but then they want to like verify that it's got the USB cable, right? They want to verify that it's got the scissors. They want to verify that it's got the nail clippers, but they're going to read it first and then they're going to look for it, right? And then you're going to go back and forth between those two to verify that all of these things are here. So when we went back and redid that image, all we had to do to create an image that had a better flow of information, a better speed of comprehension is bring both of those things together, right? How do we have an image that looks really good, but it also has that list in it? And that's what we were able to accomplish here. And no surprise, when we created the better looking image, but it also had the list in it, right? It outperformed even better than the original image. Now we're getting 84% of the votes in favor of this option B. And so this really drives home the point that when you're optimizing the images in your image gallery, don't just try to make it look better, right? Try to focus on the flow of information first, focus on the speed of comprehension first. And once you've locked that in, right, then you're going to be able to move on. And then you're going to say, okay, now that we've got the flow of information down, now let's make it look good. And so this is, look, I like to share different case studies. We've seen a couple where it's like, wow, big increases in click-through rate, big increases in unit session percentage. But this was an example where I was consulting for a client and we spent a ton of time and a ton of money going through and making images that they already had a good looking image gallery. They were one of our agency clients back in the day. He came back to us and he's like, hey, can we keep increasing the conversion rate? Like, can we make better images? And I was like, I don't know. Your conversion rates are already high. They were already really high. Some of his products had like 80, 90% unit session percentages. It's like a commodity product. And he's like, hey, can you make these images better? And so I was like, I don't know, we'll try. And this was the first time that really hit home that like we created images that looked far better, but we spent a ton of time, a ton of money on this, and there was almost no increase in unit session percentage. It was almost exactly the same, right? That is like an honest story. But on another project, what we did is we went back and we focused and we said, okay, we can't just make this look better. We actually have to make the image faster, easier to understand by the brain. And then when we were able to do that, and we did purely informational optimizations. I shouldn't say purely informational because we did also make it look better, but we focused first on the informational optimizations. This was for a kitchen and dining product. We were able to increase that unit session percentage by 27%, right? Really adds up. So the way that I kind of want to explain this to you is to think about it like this, that there are diminishing returns in over optimizing a secondary image, right? So imagine I have an image in my gallery. For supplements, you really need this. You need to show the nutrition information. If I start with this as my image and I move from this to this, I can probably see a high potential for increase, right? Because not only is this looking better, right? It's giving me a little bit more information. It's showing the product. It's giving me some more giving me some more context here. But if I were to go from like, if I already have an image like this in my gallery, and then I try to go from this to this or vice versa, from this to this, I'm probably going to see a low potential for increase. So if you have really terrible looking images in your gallery, number one, if you're successful on Amazon, you're probably selling in a very non-competitive niche because it's very difficult, right? I don't think I'm going to find images like this almost anywhere in top sellers for any supplements just because it's too competitive. You won't do well anymore. So if you're in a category that just has bad images, if you go from a bad looking image and you make the image look better, you probably actually can increase your unit session percentage. But for a lot of us, our images probably aren't terrible, right? And so what I'm trying to explain here is that you can't just go from having a good, like an already decent looking image and try to make it look a little bit better and expect your unit session percentage to go up. The only way to do that is from increasing the speed of comprehension and having a better information flow, having people more quickly, their brain understand what is going on in the purpose of that image. Okay, cool. And this is working perfect on time because it is 7:52. And we just have to get through this future considerations portion. Now, for those of you who have seen this or bits and pieces of this content before, right? Maybe you saw it at Camp Ecom. Maybe you've seen bits and pieces of this in other seller systems presentations. I hope that you've been finding this to be helpful. We're going to open it up to Q&A after we get through future considerations. So you can start filling this chat with all your questions. We're going to start going through those in probably about like 15 to 20 minutes, maybe a little bit longer. I can't encourage you enough. You're going to want to check out the presentation on July 12th, right? There is not going to be any overlap with that information. It's going to be about 4 hours long, that whole masterclass. This is really just kind of laying the groundwork, right? The people who are going to join in that masterclass, I'm only going to spend about 30 minutes in the beginning, just going through the basically, the stuff about the hacking the brain and the, brain being a giant graphics processor. This is going to be a totally different set of information. So you're really going to want to join that. I think it's going to blow everyone's mind. It's going to be really good. So with that being said, let's wrap up here and move into future considerations. So what I'll tell you is this. A lot of what this talks about is AI, generative images, and I'm going to kind of paint the picture of what I think is the potential for this technology and how you can start using this now. What I'll say is that I think AI absolutely will take over the world. Hopefully it's going to be in a good way, but we're absolutely not there yet, right? A lot of this technology, especially DALL-E, Midjourney, it's really hyped. And I love this stuff, right? I've been talking about this for more than a year. My $1 billion Seller Summit presentation last year, I don't want to say I was the first person to start talking about generative images in the industry, but I was definitely one of the people who started playing with this early on and saying, wow, I love this stuff. I think it's cool. I use Midjourney every day. I've got Discord on my phone. I'm always creating new concepts, playing around with it. But what I want you to understand is that this is not a replacement for graphic designers, for photographers. Eventually, this technology will absolutely be able to create and test images that are going to convert better than anything we've ever made on Amazon. I'm confident of that. But that's not going to probably be for like at least another year. More likely, I think it's probably going to be 2 years. And so key takeaway here is don't fire your agencies, don't fire your staff, and don't think DALL-E and Midjourney are replacements for real design talent. I'm going to tell you what it's really, really good for, but these are not going to hand you images that are ready to put on your Amazon listing in the vast majority of cases. I was prepping for an AI panel that I was at in Prague, and I scheduled a call with John, our videographer, and Natasha, our graphic designer. And John said a quote that I really, really liked. And I was like, man, I'm going to put this in quotes and I'm going to put it up on a screen. And he said, don't think these AI tools are going to hand you 20 years of experience in one click. And I thought that was a really good quote. Now, what I will say is when I'm thinking about AI, priority number one for me, right, is empower your team or choose agencies that utilize AI in the tools that they are already experts in, right? Everyone talks about AI, it's going to take all of these jobs away. And I think that it absolutely will, right? In the long term, it's going to definitely displace a lot of workers. But for right now, I'm talking in the next year, the next 2 years, the biggest gains we're going to see in AI are going to be people that are already smart. They're already professionals. They're already skilled. And what it's doing is it's going to allow them to work faster and put out higher quality, more consistent results. It's going to make these people, it's going to be a very big difference. The people who are using AI, it's going to seem like they're superhuman, and the people that aren't are just going to seem like normal people, right? And that applies to sellers. The sellers that understand how to use this technology are going to seem like they're superhuman, and those that don't embrace and learn how to use this technology and don't train their teams and don't work with people or agencies that use this technology are going to fall behind, right? That is the absolute truth. You will not be able to win in the long term without having a good understanding of how AI works. With that being said, right, it's not going to replace everything. And so what I would recommend doing right now is, like, regardless of the hype for Midjourney and DALL-E, and for those of you who don't know, Midjourney and DALL-E are just generative image creators. So you put in text and then it's going to shoot out an image, right? That's basically it. It creates an image from scratch. And so regardless of the hype for Midjourney and DALL-E, right, a lot of you can get really good inspiration for packaging. You can get really good inspiration for new product design. You can get really good ideas out of this stuff. And Steve Simonson, a couple of weeks ago, maybe it was about a month ago now, maybe more than a month now, I watched this. It was a really good talk on AI. right? Brandon's also talked about using AI for product development. For idea generation, this stuff is amazing. But in terms of actually creating the images for your galleries, right, it's limited. What you really should try to focus on is that if you have designers on your team, right, start to get them to use programs like Adobe. They're probably already using Illustrator. Adobe just rolled out, this is going to be like 2 or 3 weeks ago, their Firefly suite. And so I think the cream of the crop in the next 2 years is going to be skilled designers using AI inside of the tools that they're already experts in. And I think Adobe is probably going to have the most comprehensive tool suite in the end. I think it's probably going to blow all of these other ones out of the water. Like Dolly, Midjourney, they're really cool. They're really fun to play with. They're really entertaining. But from a functional, from a practical standpoint, they're quite limited. The other thing too, right? This is another thing. If you want to check this out, when I'm saying Adobe will most likely have the most comprehensive tool suite in the end, the problem with generative image creators for creating images for Amazon right now is that these generative image creators are very good at creating environments. They're very good at creating scenarios. The problem is if I'm saying, hey, I want you to, put my red spatula in a bohemian kitchen, it doesn't really recognize what the product is. And so what Substance 3D does is it allows you to kind of like model a 3D product, and then it's going to kind of use generative images to build an environment around that product. And so I think the cream of the crop really when it comes to generative images is going to be something that can create environments, and then it's going to also recognize what your product is, like a 3D model of that product, and it's going to be able to place that product into the environment. Like step 1, build the environment. Step 2, put this into a realistic and put it into a hand, put it onto a table, and it's going to look realistic without having to go and do that on the back end. So get your teams trained in Adobe. They're probably already using it. Photoshop has also put out their generative image tools. This is going to allow your designers to go and create more variations. It's going to allow them to work faster and more consistently. So that's priority 1, right? Don't fire your agencies. Get the experts. Work with the people that are already using AI. Now, priority number 2, this is where you can actually start using it. Steve has talked about this. Brandon's talked about this. It's leverage AI to build concepts that professionals can use to create usable assets, right? So remember when I was talking earlier, I was saying, I don't know how to shoot a camera off manual mode, right? Even this camera in front of me, Sean's like explained to me how to use it. And I just have it on auto. I think it looks pretty clear. Like, I don't know how any of this stuff works. I don't know how, Photoshop, Illustrator, very limited understanding. What I can do is I can come up with concepts and I can explain that in a way that I can hand it off to a creative. And that's how I'm able to create really good images. Like, I don't actually go into Illustrator or Photoshop, but as a brand owner, you need to be able to come up with ideas and then give those ideas to a creative team that can execute on them, right? And so this is where AI is extremely helpful, is for building concepts. And I'm going to walk through a few of those right now. So the practical applications that business owners, especially non-creatives, can use right now is for creating environments, creating shot lists, and reverse engineering how the brain recognizes images. I think the last one is probably the most exciting. So what I'm going to show you right now is a series of images. And what I want to let you know is that for all of this, I went through about 30, I think it was almost exactly 30 prompts in Midjourney. I spent about 45 minutes doing this. And out of those 30 prompts, I was able to get about 8+ usable ideas. I think it was probably like 9 or 10. I think you're going to see like 9 separate images on the next slide. And I think I have something on the AI product. So this is also what I want to show here, is because I'll show these images in a minute. I'll come back to these. But all of this was based off of, in Data Dive, we just released this new AI product brief. And so remember earlier when I was saying like, okay, when I'm thinking about optimizing for conversion rate, I'm thinking about like, what does the customer need to know before they buy the product and what's shown on the listing? And so a lot of what I'm doing in terms of like thinking about this, I used to do a lot of this manually. And so this is all going to be for a sneaker cleaner. I think this is all going to tie back to the images that I'm going to show, and it's going to help make this explanation a little bit more clear. So back in the day, I used to do all of this manually. You can also download things manually now, put them into ChatGPT. You have to do a little bit of prompt engineering with the AI to get to this output. But now inside a Data Dive, and this is, if you're in Inner Circle, you can join the beta access program. Just go to datadive.tools/beta. I think, or 2 data dive tools / beta. We can give you the link later. But basically, you just click a few buttons, you wait 5 to 15 minutes, and then it's going to give you an entire product brief. That way you can see, hey, here's the most important things. You can go and start to create the shot list. So I'm just going to walk through step by step on how this works. And then I'm going to go back and walk through some of the rationale behind the images that I created and the prompts that I created in Midjourney. So basically what you do is you are in Data Dive, you go to the AI product brief tab, you just select, you can only select up to 10 competitors right now. I recommend picking the ones that have the highest performance, right? So ideally the people who are very strong, you just click the toggle for selecting the top 10 competitors, right? You select them, then you click Analyze Selected Competitors. Then you wait about 5 to 15 minutes. This thing is going to run in the background, right? So I recommend just like opening up a duplicate tab and you keep working, or go get yourself some coffee, or whatever you want to do in 5 to 15 minutes. And then when you come back like magic, it's going to give you a handful of things. So number one is it's going to show you all of the attributes that are included in the listing. It's going to show you for all of the competitors the frequency, right? So this is based on the product detail page. It's going to show you all of the main features of the product, right? It's going to show you all of those here, the attributes in the listing. Then you just click which ones you want to include in the product brief. You can even add your own. Okay. Attributes included in the listing, right? So after you click the check boxes, it's going to show up here. You can add in your own attributes if you think that current competitors don't have things that you want to add in. Then it's going to give you then it's going to give you, I think I skipped through two. So it's going to give you, attributes included in the listing. So these are like key features. Then it's going to show you all of the product, positive product attributes. So this is what people like about the product. Then it's going to show you the negative product attributes. This is what people don't like about the product. This is from the review data. And then it's going to give you value-added ideas. So this is ideas that you can use to make the product better. And then it's going to give you these customer avatars. And then based on that, it's going to give you an entire product brief, right? So you can edit this, you can change this, you can, use the product brief to analyze reviews, Q&A, etc. So now I want to go back to this, and I'm going to walk you through what I did with these Midjourney prompts. So this is the example of using generative AI to create environments that match your customer avatar with ultra relevant scenarios. So let's say that I'm selling, this is for I think I was showing you, this is for a sneaker cleaning kit. And so what I did is, like, this is the prompt here. This is your Imagine prompt. And these are really simple prompts. I'm not really I'm just trying to get general ideas here. So Steve, he was giving like a ton of really good information. If you want to create more usable images, you should follow his guides. This is just for idea generation. The only kind of fancy thing I'm doing on this is I'm doing --V5 so that the output is going to be rendered by version 5 of Midjourney. So you're going to get the highest quality output. So for this, all I'm trying to think about is like, okay, if I'm doing a lifestyle shoot and I want to think of like what environment or what should the scene look like for this product, I'm thinking, okay, like I know I need to have a sneakerhead. That was one of the customer avatars that was shown by the AI product brief creator when I did it in Data Dive. It's like a sneakerhead. It was explaining what a sneakerhead was and some of their characteristics. So I was like, okay, if I'm doing a lifestyle shoot and I want someone who's a sneakerhead, who's the #1 customer avatar that buys a sneaker cleaner, what are the environments? What are the ways that they're going to display their shoes? And I'm looking at this and I'm like, this is an interesting one. Like someone's sitting in front of a car, but this one was even better. Like if I wanted to do like a low cost shoot, this one or this one, right? Like this might be a little bit expensive to set up. You have like this whole shoe rack in the background, but like just in front of a building, right? It's like you're displaying the sneakers on the ground in front of the person, right? I see these consistent trends. What's interesting about AI for idea generation is that you got to think these AI models are trained off of millions and millions and millions and millions of images, right? All that are going to be recognizable to the brain, right? This AI, the model, is just a reflection of the images that it was trained on and then the people that train them. And so if there's something that's recognizable in these images, right? Like what's the main thing I see here is people have these sneakers displayed across the ground. So if I'm creating a shot list and I want to show a sneakerhead, I really just have to have someone, ideally they're going to be wearing some kind of sports cap, they're going to be wearing some streetwear, and then they're going to have a layer of sneakers laid out in front of them. And that's going to be recognizable to the brain that if someone sees this, that's going to be the sneakerhead. That's the environment. That's the setup of the sneakerhead. This one here is a traveler with pristine white shoes, right? And so there, again, I get some other ideas, right? Like, okay, traveler, where am I going to show them? Like airport, that's going to be difficult. It's going to be hard to recognize it's even an airport. Like, would you recognize that someone's in an airport? But look at what we have here. We've got a train platform. Oh, shoot. Like, I can go almost anywhere and find a train platform that I can do like a, I don't have to pay any location fees. I can just like go down to my nearest Amtrak station, unless you're at like New York Penn Station in New York, all these Amtrak stations are super small. Or I really just need to get like, see, you've got the train in the background, someone's sitting on their bag, right? Someone's sitting in a train car or on a bus or on public transportation, right? You can see this is like indicating that I'm in a travel scenario, right? So getting some good ideas for environments here. I think the train platform is the one that I like the best. It's like this side shot. You can see down the row, train. Even if someone's not regularly traveling on trains, it's like train, bag. That's what I'd try to shoot for. It's like a combination of these two images, right? That's going to click in someone's brain, fast speed of comprehension. This one, I've got sneakers in a gym. Again, I just like this. It's like, okay, sneakers in a gym. Sure, I could show it in a gym bag. I think probably pulling out of a gym bag, I might revise the prompt to include like sneakers in a gym bag or like a workout setting. But ideally, right, is someone going to really be like lifting weights in these sneakers? I don't know. Probably not. But like, okay, basketball court, right? Like what's gonna click for these sneakers? Like basketball court. That's what I'm thinking. Is like, I'm just gonna go to a basketball court. I'm gonna try to go to like a local high school, and I'm just gonna be like, okay, I just need this shot here, sneakers on the basketball court. Okay, so this is for creating a shot list. Again, what I'm doing here is I'm not saying I'm going to use any of these images. Although some of these might be close, I'm probably going to go and try to recreate these in the real world or use some graphic design to augment or enhance these images. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to identify what are the elements, what's going to be recognizable by the brain that's going to help click in someone's brain very quickly. So in this one, it was like the layout of the sneakers, the outfit of the person who's wearing it. This one was like the train platform, them sitting on a bag. This was the basketball court, right? For this, I'm trying to get elements that I can put into my shot list. So let's say I'm talking about this sneaker cleaner, and I really want to reinforce that this is made with safe chemicals or that it's eco-friendly. And so what do I put in here? I'm not even talking about a sneaker cleaner at this point. I just want to get what's going to click in someone's brain that it's going to be an eco-friendly cleaning solution, that it's safe chemicals, that it's not harsh chemicals, right? What are we seeing here? Right? We're seeing really clean, sterile looking environments, almost all of these. And I didn't tell it to do this. This is a very simple prompt, right? This is going to be the exact opposite of what Steve is showing you. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that. You should absolutely do what Steve is saying in his AI masterclass. His masterclass was amazing. Like 12 out of 10, so good. What I'm saying is this is a little bit different of a prompt style that if you're going for idea generation, if you put in really general ideas, right? I'm not trying to get these for the quality of the image. I'm just trying to see if we're thinking about an eco-friendly cleaning solution, right? What's going to click in someone's brain that they're looking at an eco-friendly cleaning solution without any words being on the screen? And what do we notice in 3 out of 4 of these images? It's a very light foreground, very clean foreground, and we've got this dark background, so it's this contrast. We also have some kind of natural element in it, whether it's plants, whether it's these leaves, whether it's the oranges, right? So if I'm going to go and try to recreate this, I'm probably going to try to show the ingredients. I'm going to try to show probably like a darker but very simple background and a lighter but also very simple background, right? Those are the elements that I'm going to take out. We're talking here about effortlessly cleaning white sneakers, right? What do we see as well here? It's like really people focusing on the laces, right? Just really simple, right? Like what I like about this, what I got from 3 out of the 4 images is like, if we're showing this should not be a face shot, right? This is just hands cleaning sneakers. And maybe that's very intuitive for some of you, but like, I get ideas for, right? Okay, so I'm probably going to like maybe hold one shoe up. I'm going to actively be working on one shoe, and then I'm going to show both shoes there, right? But I'm only going to try to show the hands. I'm not going to try to show the face in this. And then again, this is why I like either just re-rolling the option, so it's giving me more variations, or you're just putting in prompts. In this one, it's like I don't actually know how this came up, but sometimes you just get random stuff out of this AI, but it gives you cool ideas. So I put in scrubbing hard to clean dirty white sneakers, and what I got is like the sneaker inside of a case. Like, why did it come up with that? But then as I'm thinking of it, it's like maybe what it picked up from that is that it's talking about like cleaning sneakers that are dirty or they're white, and then it's like putting them in this glass case. And that's something that I hadn't previously thought about, that like, okay, if I'm talking about we need to talk about how easy it is to clean or do a before and after, what I'm going to take away from that is like maybe I show like a before and after, but I show the other one and it's like in this glass case. And that would be really easy to go and order like a cheap glass case on Amazon for a photography shoot, but it's really going to kind of strike that contrast. So again, just for idea generation, it can really help you come up with these different ideas. And then the last section here that I'm going to talk about is that, like I was saying earlier, AI is just a reflection of how our own brains work and understand visual inputs. So this whole presentation today has been all about, right, how can I make something click? How can I show someone the most relevant image that's going to click inside the customer's brain? So here I'm also putting in very, very general prompts, but I'm just getting some different ideas. So if I want to show that my sneaker cleaning kit doesn't just come with a bottle of solution, it also comes with a brush, right? It also comes with a cloth that you can use to wipe things off. All I put in for the prompt was more value with better accessories, right? Like I'm trying to say, you're going to get more value if instead of just getting the solution, you get our multi-pack, which has the brush, it has the cloth, it has the sponge, whatever. So what am I noticing here? Again, very, very simple foregrounds, almost nothing going on in the background. And then I'm kind of staggering the items around. So if I'm creating a shot list that it's like, okay, the purpose of this graphic is to show inclusions of the product, what do I want to do? Just gonna like put the products. If I have like 3-4 items, I'm just gonna do like 1, 2, 3, 4. Really simple. Probably the largest items in the back is what I'm noticing. Smallest items in the foreground, and that's it, right? So if I'm going now and I'm making a shot list, I'm trying to have something that's recognizable. It's like I'm probably gonna put the bottle of solution in the back. I'm gonna put the brush here. I'm gonna put the towel folded up here, and then I'm gonna put like, I don't know if there was an extra item. I don't know if you can see my hands, but right? I'm not going to try to copy these images. I'm just going to try to copy like what's the format that's going to click for people's brains. This one here, another very simple prompt: impressing friends with amazing sneakers, right? So if I want to show an idea of like, okay, I want people to be impressed, I really like this one down here. It's like you can see this person, they're gazing, and look, you can't use this image. I think like this leg, there's like a random shoe here, right? Terrible image. You can't use this on your Amazon listing. But what I really liked is like, what do I want to try to do if I'm coming up with a shot list that's going to be like, ooh, these people are kind of eyeing up the shoes. It's very subtle. I can check out their outfits. And then it's like, this guy's kind of looking into the distance. This person's looking down at his shoe. This person's looking down at his shoe. And if you zoom in, they're not like super animated. They just have like a light smile on their face. And so this is all direction that I can give. It's like, I understand if I can create an image that looks like this, there doesn't need to be any text on the screen. There should be text on the screen, but there doesn't need to be any text on the screen for someone's brain to click and be like, ooh, I want to be this guy in the middle where people are just like kind of glancing at my shoes, right? So these concepts are things that you can pull out of it. And then this is just to show you that not everything is going to be good, right? So if you go too general with the prompt, I just said effective, I didn't get anything usable about that. So I think that's why instead of saying having 9 usable prompts, because there was 3 sets of images, there was really only 8, but that was just a bad prompt. I think I could have done a little bit better with the prompt generation. Okay. I'm not going to go through AI copywriter. Yeah, this is just that I've been talking about AI for a while. It's come a long way, right? DALL-E used to make, can't really see this image here, but it used to really mess up faces. Midjourney actually does pretty good with faces, which is good. So here's the quick 5-question survey. You can go to surveymonkey.com/r Optimum Images. We'll put up this slide in a minute. I'm going to take a 4-minute break. So we're going to get back here at 8:20 East Coast time. So that's 4 minutes from right now. Start dropping your chats into the Q&A. If you want to raise your hand and ask a question, we're going to prioritize people who raise their hand first. I know this is supposed to stop at 8:30. I'll hang around, I don't know, at least half an hour, maybe a little bit longer. Yeah, so I'll hang around, start dropping these questions into the chat. Raise your hand if you want to get in the queue. I think it's going to line you up in the queue. We'll be back here at 8:20 which is now 3 minutes from now. While I'm gone, scan this QR code. Please, 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 really, it helps us. Like, if you're like, hey, I've seen this content before, Anthony, you suck. Or this part on image scoring was confusing. Or, hey, I actually really learned something. Drop it in. I want to hear it all. Good, bad, terrible. Come here because this is all going to get better for, well, first off, the content on July 12th is going to be totally different. But I'm going to make this presentation because I know we're going to probably re-record this and put it into seller systems. I actually will look at this. So please, 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 really go and feed this out, fill this out, and then random winners are going to win a prize. And I'm not going to tell you what the prize is, but it's going to be good. So go and fill that out. I'll be back in 3 minutes. Get those Q&As in, and then we'll wrap up. All right, we're going to wrap up. Hopefully, yeah, probably the next 30 minutes. I see we've got 23 questions, but I'm sure not all of those are questions. I think Marlene is going to hop out, so I am the host, so we are all good there. Wow, it's been a long day. Been up since 6 a.m. Everyone, scan this QR code. Yeah, take the survey. I want to get like 90% participation on this survey. And I think in the next masterclass, we're going to reveal what the first prize is. I promise these prizes are going to be good. You don't want to miss out. They're going to be really, really good. So we'll share what that is. It's a mystery right now, but when you see the first one, you're going to be kicking yourself because not enough people fill these out. We only get a few responses per masterclass. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Let me just get out of this view here real quick, and I'm going to stop sharing. We've got 3 people with their hands raised. So Rob, why don't you take yourself off mute, and we'll go through and start answering the questions.
Hey, Anthony. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hey, yeah. So I was just curious. I know AI is it's very important for the future for sellers and agencies. As someone who wants to learn the language, so to speak, of some of these AI generation tools, do you have any recommended resources, like maybe where you learned it, something I could go and review and watch and kind of learn to use these tools myself?
Yeah, for sure. Are you an Inner Circle?
I'm not personally. My partner is.
Oh, okay. So if your partner is, then there's another really good workshop. This is like the way that I use AI is probably the least advanced way to use it. I use it in a very practical way. I use AI every single day in my job, whether it's for creating concepts, whether it's for using Chat GPT to write emails, different things like that for copy. Steve Simonson, he gave a masterclass, I think it was about a month and a half ago, all about AI. And in that deck, so just go into Inner Circle as one of the recent masterclasses, that has a ton of resources. One of the big things that's going to help you is things that are helping you with prompt engineering, right? So that's basically the outputs that you get from AI are only going to be as good as what you actually put into the AI, right? And so there's like a whole list of tools that he gives that you can use to start using AI more effectively. I think some of the most helpful things there are going to help with prompt generation. So you're going to want to go and check that out. That's what I'll say there. Just go to your partner and be like, hey, can you like share me your login? Or I should have been saying that out loud, but that's a really good presentation.
Gotcha. Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks for joining. All right, Neil, if you want to take yourself off mute and ask your question.
Hey, Anthony, how's it going?
Yep. Doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. I got about 3 questions if you have time, but the first one,
for it.
When you're doing the 5-second test to see if they know what the image is for right away, do you explain to them what the product is beforehand and like your main benefits and stuff like that? Or do you just show them the image and say, do you know what this image is about?
So I used to say in the past that you would give them no context about the image. If you're working in like a face-to-face group setting and you're working or like you're showing this directly to someone, I would say like if you're showing a series of images, then the product probably is not important. The max explanation of the product that I'm going to give is I'm going to say like, hey, this is a garlic press and it's used for crushing garlic, but that's it. And then you're really going to want to see, does that image stand on its own and do they understand what the purpose of it is? And so if you join in the July 12th, I'm going to go through a bunch of the research that I have from doing this with PickFu. So when I'm running these, I'm just saying like, what do you think the purpose of this image is? And then there's a section for additional context. And I'm literally just saying, this is a garlic press. It's used for crushing garlic with no additional context. What do you think the purpose of this image is? What do you think it's trying to accomplish? And if you're finding that the percentage of people that are giving you a different response or an incorrect response from what your intended purpose is, then that's not going to be good. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that answers that. How many people should
when I'm running this through
we ask?
PickFlu, I'm
What do you
doing
recommend?
this with a 15-person poll. That's more for cost
Okay.
than anything else. Like you can do it for up to 50, but I just want to get some data. So if I get 15 people and 14 out of 15 or 13 out of 15 get the point, that's going to be really strong. If like 3 or 4 get it right, then that's going to be really bad. So I think
Yeah.
like if you're using a polling service 15, if you're one-on-one with someone else and you're testing like multiple images, like getting feedback from one person is going to be helpful than 0. So I would just say like start anywhere, but I'm going to try to shoot for 15.
Okay. I was thinking about just going to the grocery store because like my target audience is women with young children and
Okay.
saying, hey, I'll give you $5 to buy you a coffee if you answer a couple questions. And that's what I was thinking. I mean, something like that.
It might work. I don't know about how people feel about being approached in public, but maybe if you were like outside of the grocery store and you had like a little sign up or something, and you said like get a $5 Amazon gift card for answering a 30-second survey, then if you kind of frame it as I might not approach random people in public, but if I think probably setting up outside of a grocery store if you ask them, or you're somewhere in the parking lot with a little banner, I think that could work.
Okay, cool. All right. What should the pixel size be for our images for desktop and mobile? Like, is it different?
It shouldn't differ. What I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to do the max resolution that I can upload, which is typically going to be 2000 by 2000.
Okay.
Yeah, just make sure you're maxing out the file size. What you want to make sure is when you upload it into your Amazon listing, if you click on the image and then zoom in, you shouldn't see any distortion around the edges. Another really helpful AI tool, if let's say you're working on an outdated image gallery, or you don't have the raw files of your original images, there's a really good program called Topaz, Topaz, and it's really good at refining and making images look clearer. So before we upload any of our images into or any of our content onto YouTube, things like that, we're running it through Topaz, and it takes it from looking clear to looking really, really clear. And then take that and then put max file size 2000 by 2000 typically.
Okay, cool. All right, and then the last question I've got is like your secondary images, your first secondary image should be like your main benefit, right? Should your first bullet mirror that? You know what I mean? Like, should they mirror your in order of your images, or does it matter?
When I'm thinking about the copy on my listing, like title specifically and then bullets after that, is I'm really looking at the written content as an SEO tool. So earlier in the presentation, I was talking about levers, right? It's kind of like how your main image, you're not really trying to focus on conversions. I would look at the image gallery and the bullet points, any of the written content as being separate. What I would probably try to look at is like, number one, think critically about, okay, what are the things that the customer needs to know before they buy the product, and try to prioritize that list. Like, this is what I feel based on looking at the review data, based on, anything that you see in the listing, this is what's the most important. And then try to just think critically on like, this is what I think is the most important. This is what I think is going to be the least important, and order them that way. The other thing that you can do, which I was explaining today, is to just look at all of the competitors in your niche, like 15 plus, and then just categorize the images by type. And then look and see for all those 15, what typically do people have in image position 2 or 3? So if, for example, I was going to look at garlic press, what I'm going to find is that like 60-70% of the images in position 2 or 3 are going to be a product anatomy and a how-to explaining what a garlic press does and how it works. So if I'm going to do that, I'm probably going to try to start off, if I'm launching a product, by following that format of what seems to be working for the top performers. I'm going to start with that as my initial, and then I'm going to try to test over time, right? Maybe like once every couple of months or once every quarter, I'm going to try to switch the order of the images in my gallery and see if I can get some data there. The other thing, and this is coming from my PickFu days, that I would do is I would upload all of the images in the gallery, outside of the main image. You don't include the main image in this. And I'd put like 4 to 6 images in just one single image. And then I'd run it on PickFu as a PickFu click test, right? And then I'm just going to say, out of all of these images in the gallery, this is for a garlic press, it's used for crushing garlic, which one of these would be most impactful in convincing you to buy the product? And then what's going to happen is people are going to go and click on the image, right, out of all of the 6, because it's just one solid image, but they're going to click on the one that they like the most. And then you're going to be able to read the feedback from that. And then you can kind of see a heat map like, wow, everyone's picking on the image that I have in 6th position in my gallery. Maybe I should think about moving that up, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
And for anyone who like, if you've never used PickFu before, or you've heard about it a lot and you're thinking about using it, you can just use the code Seller Systems. And I don't know what kind of discount. It might be your first pull for free, or it might be like 50% off your first one. But you know, Amazon, I don't know why they don't give you this data, because they definitely have it, like how far people get through your gallery. But in the meantime, you know, using that or another similar service, you don't need to use PickFu, but using something like that, it can be very helpful just to get some insights. And we're going to talk a lot about testing in the July 12th workshop. Cool.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
I don't know if I'm going to butcher this name here. So I'm not even going to try, but when you first start, maybe introduce yourself, and then I'll make sure I get it right for the remainder of your questions. But June, if you want to unmute yourself, apologize if I messed that up.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, yeah, Chen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just ignore the apostrophe.
Oh, Chu Yun. Okay, easy.
Yeah, Chen. Okay, so for the PickFu test, do you ask them to take, when you do like the 5-second test, do you say take 5 seconds and look at this image and tell me, you know, what you understand, you know, for the comprehension test? Do you ask them, or do you not even bother with it? How do you test it?
Yeah, I got you. So we're going to go through this in depth in the July 12th workshop. I'm going to show you a whole bunch of tests that I ran and kind of all the best practices that I learned. But generally, when I'm setting this up, kind of my SOP for this is I'm just doing a 15-person poll with one image. And I'm just saying for my question, like, what do you think, with no additional context, what do you think the purpose of this image is? And then for the additional context section, I'm just saying this product is a garlic press. It's used for crushing garlic. Based with no additional context, what do you believe the purpose of this image is? And then all I'm doing is in my head, I have what I think the purpose of the image is. And then I'm looking at the responses. And for every response that matches mine, I'm counting it. If it doesn't match mine, I'm not going to count it. And then how I'm calculating this comprehension score is just if 14 out of 15 people get the correct answer, that's going to have a high percentage comprehension score. If like 3 or 4 people out of 15 get the correct answer, then it's going to be like low percentage comprehension score. So that's how I'm setting it up.
Okay, thank you. I've got one other question, sorry.
Yep.
With regards to, you know, I'm trying to redo my images now that I've listened to you. But I was thinking that I need to understand my customer avatar. Unfortunately, in my case, I don't know who my customer is. I know it sounds stupid, right? But because, you know, so many types of different people buy my product, like the percentage of men and women is almost 50-50, you know, it's like 48-52, you know, and then, you know, so all my demographic data is quite generic. It's all like pretty much everybody, like from 25 to like 60, you know, that kind of thing, you know. So everybody in that demographic buy, not the too young and not the too old. So how do you create lifestyle images when you don't really know who your customer is?
Yeah. So are you an inner circle?
Yes.
Okay. So if you are an inner circle, you get a really good deal on Data Dive. Instead of it being, oh, I think my camera just died. So let me switch to the other one. Cool. There we go. If you're an inner circle, you get a really, really good discount on Data Dive. Instead of it being 150 USD a month, it's only 50 USD a month. And if you're an inner circle, you get special access to the beta program. And so one of the cool beta features that we just released, it's going to be live for everyone, I think sometime next week. It's called our AI product brief. And so all you have to do is select 10 competitors in your niche. and then you wait 5 to 15 minutes, and it's actually going to give you the customer avatars for your niche. So this is a really good way to start. It's all based off of the review data. And so it's looking at the reviews, seeing what people say, looking at looking at the review data, and it's telling you who are the most common avatars of people that are buying this product. And so we're going to go through this more on the July 12th workshop, but like download Data Dive, subscribe to Data Dive. You get a special deal on it. Use the product AI product brief. Customer avatars are all going to be there, and it's really, really good.
Yeah, so that's my problem. You see, I did all that, and I've got 10 customer avatars. So do I take the first one, or do I choose out of the 10 that they've given me in Data Dive?
I would read through the AI and then ask myself, like, okay, what do I think based on my critical understanding? Some of the avatars it gives you, you should, you'll probably just have some idea of looking at it. I mean, it's not giving you any kind of data for frequency, but I would probably try to, start with the ones at the top of the list. There might be some that kind of overlap, but I would probably just start at the ones at the top of the list and then try to see, like, how can I cover the ones that are highest up on the list first. But yeah, we should probably add in some metrics to guide you a little bit more. But I would just see, based on looking at the list, like what clicks to me, like, could I see this person buying the product?
Right. All right. Thank you.
Yep. Good question. Thank you. All right, Guido, if you want to unmute yourself, we'll take your question now.
Cool. Hi, Anthony. Thanks so much for doing this for us. Question is just to sort of summarize like an SOP if you were doing a product launch, or let's say redoing your images. So you'd start with like going through the competitors. Let's say you've already run the dive. You're going to make this Excel and of all the checkboxes, all the different images and sort of where you can improve upon it. Do the 3-point test with the images. At what point do you sort of consider your A+ content? And is there anything else that I kind of like missed in that summary?
Yeah. So I know there was a few questions that were asked there. This workshop, this masterclass really didn't talk about video or A+ content at all. On the July 12th, we're going to be spending a lot of time going through that. A+ is a really big part, right? You really don't want to have, I'll answer this question in a minute. So you really don't, you don't want to have just a text-based description. So A+ is super important. I'm going to walk through testing strategies there. I think I missed like another part of the question.
Oh, I was just trying to summarize the idea. Like if you're redoing your images, so you want to do the Excel, the 3-point kind of tests with the images, and then what would be like any other workflow you would work in there? And then I guess it's sort of tied into just like when you would, take A+ into consideration.
Yeah, so I guess what I would do is like step one of my workflow would be to categorize all the images in your niche. So look at like 15 plus competitors in the niche, and then just try to see like what's the frequency. Same way that I would do keyword research, like what's the frequency that people have these types of images in the gallery. And when I understand what's the type of image in the gallery, I want to try to recreate those with, the fastest speed of comprehension possible. That'd be step number one. As I'm creating those new images, that's when I'd want to do the scoring system, right? So once I've categorized all of them and I can see these are the types of images people have in their gallery, then I want to go through and for my gallery and for everyone else's, I want to score them on the scale of 1 to 3 using half points. And then I want to see like, what's the average for the galleries? And be honest with yourself, if you're looking at your gallery and it's like, on average, my images are like a 1.5 or a 2, and then the top performers in my category are like a 3, think about what you have to do to get your images to have every image in the gallery ideally be a 3.
Okay, that's super helpful. Thank you. Great summary.
Cool. No problem. All right, so I see no more hands up. I think these are just old hands up. So I'm going to start going through the normal questions. I'm going to go from the bottom up just so that I don't miss any. Or I'll start from the bottom up. If people add in more, I can see where my most recent thing is. I just dropped a link to the July 12th workshop, so you can click that and sign up. Survey here is listed here. Jacob sent me a direct message. No, Inner Circle members don't have to pay anything. If you're non-Inner Circle, it's $197. If you're in Inner Circle, it's totally free. So I don't know, actually off the top of my head. You'll probably get an email. Maybe you haven't gotten one already, which gives you a free sign up. But like Jacob, if you're in Inner Circle, you don't have to pay. We'll get you that registration link. I don't know if there's like a coupon code or if it's just going to show up inside of Kajabi. But I'll definitely follow up on that. I'll definitely ask the team and see if I can get an answer, but you definitely don't have to pay. So Neil was asking about the survey. I think I just dropped that in there, Neil. So Kylie, hey Kylie, what's up? So can you repeat where, I hope it's okay that I'm reading this out loud because it's a direct message, where we find the AI info. Is there a link? That's inside of Inner Circle. So if you're in Inner Circle and you look at master classes, you'll see it in there. If you don't see it for whatever reason in yours, just reach out to support and Marlene will be able to get you into that. If not, you just go onto the Seller Systems website and let me see if I can find that here for you. Where are we going? All right, I'm not seeing it on here right now because these are just the upcoming ones. Yeah, so you just got to log into Kajabi. If you reach out to Marlene and it's not showing up in your course content already, she'll be able to point you in the right direction. Guido's giving some really good advice here. Twitter is fantastic. There's this other guy who's a friend of mine in the industry. His name is Anthony Lee. I'll just type it in here. I think it's I'm trying to remember what his Instagram handle is, but if you look him up on Facebook or Instagram, you'll be able to find all of his social links. But Anthony Lee puts out some really good content, very short form content that he puts on Instagram Reels and TikTok. Also a really great spot to learn. Jordan is asking about the deck. So the deck is going to be available for everyone. I'm going to upload this video tonight. And then the deck's already ready. I could send you the deck now, but they just like to put it all inside of the platform. So we're going to get sent all of that. Marlene's dropping the link to the masterclass. What pixel size do we usually recommend? Yeah, Kylie got this right here. You can do 1,000 by 1,000, but just so you don't have any distortion, I recommend, just like Kylie here, doing 2K by 2K, 2,000 by 2,000. What is the best image AI to create images? I personally prefer Midjourney. There's two really popular options. You've got Midjourney and you've got DALL-E. It's like DALL-E. I prefer Midjourney. You have to use it through Discord. You can sign up for free or you can pay $30 a month and get the Pro. I recommend getting the Pro. It's just way better. The reason I like Midjourney is because just like DALL-E, it gives you 4 different types of image variations. But what I like about it is underneath each one, you can choose if you want to upscale the image, which makes it more clear, more photorealistic, or you can create variations of one of those 4 images and it'll change small details about it. And so I think it's just really easy to work with. Also, a lot of really good tutorials. I think more people who are really into AI are using Midjourney versus using DALL-E. Just better tutorials. If I need to learn how to do anything, I was trying to replicate, if I have reference images and I wanted the AI to look at those images and then create images based on those images, right? I wanted to be able to see that all in one spot. I wanted to be able to, sorry, I'm just a little tired. I wanted to be able to find really good tutorials on that. And so I found so many good tutorials, like 25 YouTube videos, all explaining how to do that. They were very well done. Yes, we got a question about the beta program. It's just datadive.tools/beta. Everyone should take this survey. I'm going to drop that in here one more time. Hey, Anthony, did you upload the latest Data Dive office hours to YouTube? The answer is no, it's not there yet. I did send it to our video editor today. We're just going to change the expectation with office hours for Data Dive. We only have one video editor, and he works between Seller Systems and Data Dive. And we're currently redoing all of our content. I can show you, I'm not going to show a sneak peek. We're in trouble for showing too much sneak peeks, but we have a whole bunch of new videos that are coming out because we were in the studio. So we're going to change the expectation that for office hours, because it's actually a lot of work for John to go through because we have 3 sessions a week plus Q&A, and these are hour-long videos. We have a very long backlog. So we're just going to start telling people, join the live class. You're going to get the information the soonest. Everyone else, we're going to upload 2 weeks after each office hours. And so, yeah, it's not up there yet, the one on Profits Tool. And the latest one, we still have one more session at 11 p.m. Eastern. So that's 2 hours from now. I'm going to be getting on and doing the Data Dive office hours for Asia Pacific. And so that's the other thing, is because this goes over a 3-day period, you know, it's like Tuesday, Wednesday, and very, very late Wednesday night for Asia Pacific. John doesn't actually, we have to outline the Q&A, and then we have to get those files to the editor. And then like, he doesn't get them really until like Thursday or Friday. And so it was like way too condensed with the backlog to get it done that soon. So we definitely won't see the one, we've been going through the enterprise tools. You won't see that for 2 weeks, but if you're going to be around in 2 hours, 11 p.m. Eastern, you can join today and you can get all that information live. Plus, we want to incentivize people to join the live sessions, because we still get sometimes like 50, 60 people to join the Data Dive office hours live. And next week, we're talking about the AI tools. So you don't want to miss that one. It's going to be really, really good. Okay, Mark is saying AI is already strongly accelerating the creative production process in some areas, but creative professionals will probably remain the conductors of the project for a while. Yeah, I think these doom and gloom people who are really nervous about AI, like, we probably should be nervous, but we've got a little bit of wiggle room before Terminator comes and, you know, ruins our whole world and we go into the Matrix. So I would just like try to embrace it while we can. And the more that everyone understands about it, the more we're going to be able to control it, right? When we're afraid of something, that's when we really run into problems. When we're saying, this is scary, we should just not do it. AI is here, it's not going anywhere. It would be like saying, hey, I'm afraid of the internet, I don't think people should be using it, right? Learn how to use it, learn how to implement it, learn how to work alongside of it. Those are the people who are going to win. Okay, Mark is saying, awesome, Anthony, thanks. Love how Seller Systems put systems in the spotlight, even in areas where others make more gut feeling decisions. My background is photo and video production for industrial companies, and I can confirm that your approach is exactly the right one. And I follow in a similar way by agencies in other sectors. Without a systematic strategy and briefing, visual production can quickly become unfocused, even with a talented creative team. That is the biggest thing. I appreciate you saying that, Mark. And that's the biggest thing I'm trying to work on. Next, I guess it's not next week, but like 2 weeks from now on July 12th, I'm going to teach you a whole bunch about, I've just been working for years on how to take a metrics-backed approach to looking at images. Because right now it's very subjective. This is like my passion project. And I think in a couple of years, we're really going to demystify a lot of the creative process as we get better and better with implementing AI. And metrics-based is the way to go. It's easy to do with other things like keyword research. I think it's going to be possible to do later down the road. So we already had this question about the 5-second test using PickFu. You're going to learn a lot about that in the July 12th workshop. Yes, the July 12th workshop is going to cover video optimization. So I'm going to be covering a few different types of video. I'm going to cover the branded videos that you can show, that you can display in search results. Very powerful. Some of the lowest cost per click. One of the only areas of CPC, paid ads on Amazon, that's not increasing, right? So you're definitely going to want to check that out. It's going to be really good. We're going to be talking about listing videos. We're going to be talking about a little bit about off Amazon videos. Yeah, I love the iPhone story too. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Someone stole $250,000 of iPhones. Fun times. I saw some crazy stuff in Houston. Like it was wild. There's like 4,000 people that work at these Amazon fulfillment centers. So high stress environment. I mean, I love my job. Don't get me wrong. I love Amazon. I love my job, but like there's a lot going on there. I can tell you crazy stories if you're ever at one of our networking meetups. Jordan's asking, when will we get a copy of the deck? Yes, usually it's within 72 hours. I'm going to be really on top of this. So after I end this call, it's going to render all of this. I'm going to upload it into G Drive. John, our video editor, already has the slides. We're going to send it to Marlene. We got a whole process. So we have a small team at Seller Systems, like really small. Some of these other coaching communities have like 20 coaches. It's really just like, 5-6 people. We do everything. Camp Ecom, Data Dive, Seller Systems. So we keep it lean, but we're getting better, and we're getting better at automating things. All right. We got some more Argentina. We got to take a trip to Argentina. Yeah, that's going to be next on the list. All right. I'm seeing there. Okay, so we got 5 new messages. If anyone has anything else, please feel free to drop it in the chat. Otherwise, we're going to wrap up. Therese is saying, for non-Inner Circle members, will the masterclass on July 12th be available as a recording? for rewatching if we purchase it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's how it works. So if you buy it, you get access later. You'll just get a login to Kajabi, I believe, and then you're going to be able to see just that training. So definitely join it, Teresa. I hope to see you there. It's going to be really good. I'm going to bring the heat. It's going to be totally different information from today, and it's going to be a lot deeper. So it's a good thing you joined today because you got the groundwork. Next 2 weeks from now is going to be really, really good. How do I join the live session in 2 hours? Let me just give you that link here. This is for office hours. So for those of you who aren't using Data Dive, we built this tool based on everything that Brandon learned in his product business that we teach in seller systems. It's all based on the fundamentals. There is a pretty big learning curve, right? So imagine if you were to use Excel and you had never used it before, you'd be like, wow, this is super complicated. And so I do office hours 3 times a week, 1 session for North America, 1 session for Europe, and 1 session for Asia Pacific. And we cover a different topic. So it's an hour long. In the first 20 minutes, we cover a topic, and then we take Q&A for the remaining 40 minutes. So if you're a Data Dive user and you've never heard about office hours, you want to join. It's really good. This week, we're going through our enterprise tools. And so we're explaining how to set up your enterprise workflow. And if you ever miss an office hours session, we upload them to YouTube. We have a whole playlist too that you can check out. If you're not already subscribed to the Data Dive YouTube channel, you can see that there. Really, really good. You also don't have to ask questions just based on what the topic is. So if you have more questions not related to enterprise, you should still join. That's going to start at 11 p.m. Eastern today. It's going to run for 1 hour. Yusuf is saying, I'd like to know more about the AI bullets generator. I missed the latest office hours session. So look, Yusuf, you're in luck because the AI section for office hours is not until next week. So like I said, we've got 3 sessions. You can join any of them. Just click on that link down below to register. And next week, we're going to be covering the AI product brief, and we're going to be covering the AI copywriter, which allows you to rewrite your bullets. So mark your calendar, sign up for that. Really, really good. Oh, Guido, I didn't know you were based out of Houston. I haven't been there in a few years, except for passing through the airport. But I will say, I know Dallas and Houston are not close. I've done that drive a couple times myself. But in 2 weeks, I'm going to be in Dallas. I don't think I have enough time to do a meetup also in Houston. Otherwise, I would. But yeah, we'll definitely get a Houston meetup. You got to let me know. I'll reach out if there's. Are there a lot of sellers in Houston that you know?
Or actually, I'm based in LA. I just grew up in Houston, but
Okay.
I go back and forth a lot. So yeah, there's actually a lot of Inner Circle members that are in Houston. I can think of at least 2 off the top of my head. So yeah, I'll come to a meetup in either spot. So let me know.
Heck yeah. We're gonna be going really hard on. We're gonna really be scaling back from these other conferences and doing a lot more of our own events and trying to scale those up. So you're gonna see schedules for all of these. I'm gonna make sure we get an LA meetup in there.
Sounds good. Anything you're doing, I'll be there. I love your content, and I think you have a great way of explaining everything. So really appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome. Appreciate that. Well, everyone, that's where we're going to wrap up today. Please, everyone, if you thought this was a good session, if you thought it was a bad session, if you think there's anywhere for improvement, please go and take that survey. I really, really appreciate it. And thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.